But I can record it later. I cannot believe I did that.
Yeah, I was hoping you guys.
Yeah, I'm pretty thorough on mine. I'm probably too thorough sometimes.
Yeah, but you always add that.
Yeah. Yeah, that is, yeah, that.
We can't, during the sale, we're not. We're just.
And then once you're, once the part of it, then you need your individual. He pretty well runs everything. Somebody's got to do it, right? All right, thank you all. Oh. Yeah.
And he was detained and didn't get here for my talk. Did you say you have?
I was supposed to record it. I didn't.
Oh,
we might record yours later on.
Okay.
I forgot mine yours. I'm doing the rest of them, but yeah, I completely forgot.
Okay.
I need to learn to not.
Well, you know, you and me and technology, that's like, I know I was probably supposed to be clipping those slides, but I've never done that.
So it's okay. And I just did it at the end. Just so they could go.
Yeah, sorry, but I mean, it's not, okay.
But yeah, so I will have these. These are on. We're recording. And I can record mine anytime, so.
Yeah.
But I might record yours really fast.
Okay.
Okay, there's that. So I've got you up. Ready whenever you're ready.
Oh, okay.
We got a little bit of time. Well, 3 minutes. I've got you starting at 1. Right. You got some more stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, if you want to go over, I'm going to get started. So, if you guys want to be in the youth judging contest, you can head that way to the show barn.
Yeah, because that's that way you, I mean, it's what we're all about and what we're doing, what we're going, I mean, it's well, you get on there and see what we do.
So you don't have
Yeah, well, that, I mean, that's what this all for. But it, yeah, you can get that off the website.
Okay, so I have this, so you can just, if you want to, or if you want me to, as you're talking, I can go through it for you.
Yeah, well, why don't you do that, if you don't mind, and I mean, you kind of tell where we are, I don't.
Okay,
I don't have
I'll kind of listen to you, that's why I did the other one.
Okay, yeah, I don't have quite as many notes, but.
Is that turned on? Yeah, it's turned on. There you go. I'll try it.
We good now?
I think
I
you're
hear
coming through.
myself.
Yep, you're coming through. So we're going to talk a little bit about developing a breeding program, and Randy's going to talk about kind of things you need to look for, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, we, always a little bit leery about being the first speaker after lunch, so that's when everybody wants to take a nap. But hopefully I won't put you to sleep, but, we talked this morning about marketing your goats and, what type of marketing program you wanted. Before you get into marketing, you've got to develop yourself a breeding program. If you've got a well-established breeding program, the chances are high that you'll be able to breed high-quality goats with top pedigrees and strong bloodlines. Breeding program is a great way to highlight all the areas where your goats are superior to other people's goats. Professional goat breeders have a visionary approach in that small operations and large operations alike need a breeding program. And I'm going to give you a little overview of Lady ST. We've been around a long time. We got into Boer goats early on, right after they first came over to the country. And actually, we made mistakes. We had people that we looked up to that mentored us to keep us from going bankrupt. We were some of the first breeders, because most people, whenever we first started looking at Boer goats in 94, 95, like I said earlier, most people that thought of a Boer goat was white with a red head. So any color other than that, they didn't consider to be a Boer goat. But the registration papers showed that they were. The association was registering all different colors. At one time, they had some restrictions as to what could be labeled traditional and what would be labeled colored, but that's all kind of gone away. There's not really any discrimination in the ABGA about the colors of goats. But we actually started breeding for the colors because we saw them, we liked them. We thought it was a challenge for us to take these colored goats and make them of equal quality of everybody's white red-headed goats. We wanted to be able to compete in the show ring against colored goats. We wanted these goats, against the traditional goats. We wanted these goats to perform in the pasture. We raised our goats on a pretty big scale. I mean, it's not a huge ranch, but in our area anyway, because I've got ranches around me. They're 20, 30,000 acres, and we were 3,000. But if you got to start out with some goals. I like to talk about earlier in the marketing deal. I personally think you want to pay a lot of attention. You want to keep good records, just like in the marketing, but you want to pay a lot of attention to structure. I know there's a fair number of folks that are new to the business, and whenever they go out, their breeding program consists of opening up the magazine and seeing what goat pictures in there the most, and that's the genetics they want. That doesn't always work for everybody, and I can assure you that I've seen national grand champion bucks bred to national grand champion does with sale barn kids. I mean, it doesn't always, if it worked that way, it would be pretty easy to be successful in this business. But you've got to have a game plan. You've got to know what traits that you're looking for. These Boer goats, we started out crossing Boer goats with a Texas native Spanish goat. My favorite meat goat still is 5/8 Boer, 3/8 Spanish. That cross works well. The does are good mothers. They take care of their kids. You clean up a lot of the other problems that some Boer goats have. And I'll tell you, whenever the Boer goat first came to the United States, it's not like the South Africans sent us all their best stuff. They sent us their sale barn stuff. The United States was South Africa's sale barn, basically, because there were a lot of teat issues, there were mouth problems, there were feet and leg issues. It took us, and we paid big money for some of those cold goats that they sent over here. And what we had to do was take what we could work with. We had to take those goats that were available here that we were actually able to buy, and then we had to breed them up into something that we were happy with. And I was never, I liked the South African style of goat, but the South African style of goat that I first saw back in 94, 95 had legs about this long. They were just, to me, in country like we have, that's got Tassajia and prickly pear cactus and that goat's testicles dragging in all that stuff, you have a lot of problem with fertility. So I wanted to get something that was up off the ground. There was a buck that I saw at one of the stock shows early on. His name was Concho. He was an Oscar son. Oscar was a direct import from South Africa. And I think he was like the grand champion buck at Houston one year. And I told my wife, I said, now that I could work with that goat. He's up off the ground. Doesn't have all the skin folds, but he's got adequate muscle. He's tall and long. So we got some of those genetics, and we started incorporating them into what we had. Then we got into the the colored goat business because we liked them, and we, our problem was we couldn't find a good colored buck anywhere. I mean, we were buying these does and stuff, so we decided we would just make our own. We got Red Rider. We actually bought a doe that Carol DeLoe put in a sale. She was bred to Stone Cold Steve Austin, and she had twin bucks. One of them was Red Rider and one of them was Red Raider. And we got Red Rider in Oval. He was one of the first red bucks in Oval. His son, Red Raider, who was national grand champion buck, was also in Oval. So, you know, if you got a plan, you got a vision of what you want to do, that's kind of what you want to base your breeding program around. My deal is, I've always said, you know, we've always raised the kind of goats that we like. But my deal is, you know, at the end of the day, whether the judges like them, whether other people like them or not, at the end of the day, I go out there in the pen and I see these goats and I think, you know, I like those goats. So that, you know, I breed for myself. I don't breed for anybody else. I never have. We've never been one to jump on the trends or the flavor of the month or any of that. We always tried to shore up our breeding program with pieces of the puzzle that we thought would help improve our herd. Early on, when we had quite a few colored goats, and we weren't real happy with. They were all pretty thick. They had pretty good head, but they were short to the ground and short body, and we couldn't find any colored goats that had the length and the height that we wanted. So for about 5 years, we bought two really nice traditional bucks. We bred all of our does to those traditional bucks. We got the kind of goats that we wanted. We had them up off the ground. We had them long. We had them up fronted. Really nice, carrying a lot of meat, big forearm. They were really square, but the color went away. So we had a bunch of really nice traditional goats at one time. And I can tell you, all you have to do is bring one colored buck back into the program, and you're back in the color business again, because we raised a buck out of those traditionals that was a red buck, and we bred him to all those doe kids. Well, pretty much everything was red or paint after that, and that the quality was 500% better than what we had to begin with. So sometimes you got to kind of think out of the box. If you're cruising along with your breeding program and it's not really going where you want it to, sometimes you just got to say, you know, what do we need to do here? And you know, you may have to just go 180 degrees from where you're at. But as long as you keep sight of your goals, where you expect to be or where you want to be, then you know, you can always get back there. But a lot of times you need to make some changes to change the structure. You know, there was some lines of genetics we used early on that, you know, if you raise Boer goats, and these goats had really loose shoulders. Some of those, they were big, broody does, but they moved like this when they walked. And so, you know, we found a buck that was really good shouldered. He was a paint buck, and we started using him. And then gradually, after a couple of generations, we got rid of the loose shoulders. I don't know whether it bothered anybody else. I just didn't like it, and I didn't want it in my goat. So that's, you know, we just did away with that. So you want, like I said, you want to set the goals for your farm. You want short-term goals and long-term goals. The short-term goals is kind of what, actually the long-term goals is where you want to be in the future. The short-term goals is what you do to get there. So, you know, you say, this is where I want to be in 5 years or whatever, and then you look at your short-term goals, and this is what I've got to do in those 5 years to get where I want to be. And, you know, and it's good, you know, you said you're running that stuff through your head, but I always suggest that people write it down, because a lot of times you don't remember it, or by the time you get around to writing it down, it's actually changed. So write your goals down, and you want to you want to discuss your goals, with other people involved with the operation of the farm, whether it be your wife or your kids, or, you know, we always invite, whenever we had, hands or farm hands working for us, or people helping us with the goats and stuff. I had a couple of young men that were really, really good at fitting and showing, and we always try to involve them with some of the decisions we made. I think it, you know, it makes them feel more appreciated. Plus, you know, if they feel like that they have a stake in the operation, and they're more willing to do, you know, put in extra hours and do whatever is necessary. And, you know, it's my opinion is that the young people are the future of this business, because eventually we're gonna all be old and we're not gonna be able to handle goats. And, you know, it's kind of like I'm getting to that point now where I've got to have both my hips replaced and my shoulder replaced. And as I said, if I'd have got rid of goats a long time ago, I probably wouldn't have those issues. But it's been, you know, we've enjoyed it. It's been a good ride for us. We've met so many good people, and just, you know, it made a lot of friends. You know, I've got 5,000 friends on Facebook, and I think they're all goat people. So, and like I said, I told somebody, I said, I'm not sure I'd recognize a tenth of them if I saw them. But one of the goals that I suggest whenever you're coming up with a breeding plan is the traits that you want to emphasize. Multiple births is one. We talked about that in marketing, but I say I don't have much use for singles, and I don't have much use for triplets or quads. I like twins, and you know that's a fairly heritable trait. And you want to, we always, whenever we select replacement does, I only keep those that were twins, that were raised as twins. I only use bucks that were twins. I think that increases your odds of getting animals that produce twins. I'm not saying that, you know, singles, bucks that are raised as singles won't produce twins, but I just think that the probability is higher if you select for that twinning trait. And you know, I say that's really what we want. You want how am I going to say this? You want to select for your growth, birth to weaning to marketing to yearling. And you know, we do that. We always weighed our kids we weighed every kid when they were born. We recorded it. When we weaned them, we recorded it. And then when they were yearlings, we weighed them again. And after that, you know, periodically some of them we would raise, but you can get a really good idea of the growth potential of your goats by doing this. And you know, I know people that are going, you know, they'll have be pretty excited because they got 13, 14, 15 pound kids born. I don't really want those. That's pretty hard on your doe. And then my experience, those start out big, but by the time they're a couple months old, they're not any bigger than the rest of them. And I think it's more important that doe be able to have those kids without assistance or without, you know, carrying the doe or something. So it's just that, you know, I like stuff that hits the ground at a moderate size, but then take off running. I mean, we do that whenever we breed the first calf heifers. You know, we want the calves to be born small, but we want them to take off and grow once they do. So there's several breeds there that a person can use to achieve those goals. I mentioned that there's not been a lot of research been done on parasite resistance in goats. I think there probably needs to be more. I've talked with the director out at the research center there in San Angelo, and Reed Redden. He's nice. He's a young guy. He's just kind of taking over, and I think we're going to be able to maybe get some grant money to do some parasite resistance type stuff. I say that copper top buck is the only one that I know of that has never been wormed and has never had a stomach worm or barberpole in his system whenever they check. But I know if that's the case with him, that there's other lines of genetics out there that have the same parasite resistance trait. And I think we need to come up with a way that we can track that and we can interbreed those and take those offspring and evaluate them to see if they have some of the same characteristics. I do know that from the people that have gotten offspring or had kids out of copper tox, that the kids show a good parasite resistance. The grandkids show kind of a fair parasite resistance, and then after that, the third generation, it's all back to about the same as anything else. But I say, if it's good for one generation, and then real good for one generation, and then the next generation is fair, I said that's something we need to look into. The feed conversion is another thing. I mean, it really doesn't matter what market you hit. Pounds converts into dollars, and if your rate of gain, and I've been told by a lot of so-called experts that you can't really feedlot goats. I beg to differ. I think you can, and I think a lot of the reason that we can feedlot goats is the Boer goat influence of these things. Most of our native goats, I don't know what the native feral goats are up here in Texas. They're Spanish goats, and they're wild as hell. You put them in a pen with a feed trough full of feed, they'll eat, and then they're just moving constantly. They don't just go lay down. And the Boer goats or Boer crosses, they eat. They go find them a shady place. They lay down. They go get them a drink, and they eat. So they're not. I think the conception is that these wilder goats, the reason you can't feed them is because they just walk all their weight off. And I think and that Boer's not the only breed. I mean, Savannahs are, I just gave a presentation at the Savannah Convention out in Missouri, and those goats are real similar to Boer goats as far as disposition and stuff. I really think, that a cross with Savannah and Boer and something else would probably be an exceptional meat goat. I know some people that years ago when the Savannahs first showed up, they were crossing some Boer goats over Savannahs, and they were getting percentages that they were winning all the percentage shows with. Because basically, to me, looking at them, all a Savannah goat is just a Boer goat that's solid white. And whenever the Savannahs and the Boers and the Kalahari Reds, they all came from the same flock. So it's just the only difference I think is the coloration on them. And one of the most important things you need to pay attention to in your breeding program is the reproduction. You need to breed for milk production, your udder structure, mothering ability, birth weights and birth rates, and like I said, I select for twinning, that udder structure, and that's one of the things that the Boer goat early on has given us is just with some really bad udder structure and teeth structures. Now, if you look at the AVGA teeth chart, and they've been working on that thing. They've been fighting that thing for 2 years trying to get it how they want it. And I look on there, and there's only about 2 of those pictures of teeth structures that I would allow on my place. The rest of them I'm kicking out. I don't need all those non-functionals. And that, to me, the non-functionals are a bigger problem than having too many functionals, because they'll starve themselves to death on a non-functional feed. You see them out there at 50 feet or whatever, and you're going, the kid's born, and well, yeah, you know, that kid's nursing, and then the next day that kid's nursing, and then the third day he's dead. And then you go look and it's because there was no milk in the teeth that they were nursing on. So, yeah, I kind of have a big problem with non-functionals. You know, and that's something that's allowed. I would rather, I know people that, the show people, they advocate for 1-in-1. That doesn't work for me because, you know, I'm gonna have those triplets. And that they all need a spigot if they're gonna, you know, if they have any hope of raising them. So I'm, well-spaced 2 and 2 teats is what we strive for. You know, I don't know judges, if they're judging a show, you know, they can't knock you down for having 4 as opposed to 2. It's just a personal preference, but you know, and Norman Coles is the one that told me this years ago. He said, I want 2 and 2. He said, because, you know, we have a lot of multiple births, and he said, I want them to be able to, they can't nurse if they don't have a spigot. So basically that's what it boils down to. We talked some about your record keeping, and I would like to invite you to look at the Goat Federation website, that record keeping software that's on there. You can get on there and you can download it. It's got all the different things that you need to put in there. But you know, you want the kid's ID and the dam's ID, the date they were born, and the weight of the kid, and the sex, and the type of birth, whether it be a single, twin, triplet. And I also like to add I always make a note on my book that, you know, if they had it on their own naturally without any assistance, or if I had to assist them, or if they had problems, what the problems were. Because between this year and next year, I may not remember that. And if I have the same problem again, then that's like a doe that I want to put down to call. But if I didn't write it down, then next year, whenever she has that problem, I'll go, well, you know, she had this problem, so we'll give her another year. And actually, she should be going. So, and I also like to put on there, whether it's a full blood or a percentage, the ID of the sire. It just makes it easier when you go to filling out registration papers that you have all this information. And I like to know how old the mom is. I like to know how, you know, I've had does that produced up till they're 12 years old and produce kids and raise kids. And to me, that's a pretty good genetic trait to be able to, you know, longevity. If they can, you know, I know a lot of them that live a long time, but if they're not productive, they're not making you any money. So, you know, we like to see them be productive as long as possible. And a lot of the issues, a lot of your full blood Boers, not all of them, but there's certain genetics. By the time they get to that age, they've had kids, and their udders are just horrendous. You know, they're dragging the ground, or you know, they just, and I have a really healthy respect for those that, you know, we've shown some of them that have been like 3 years old, and the judges will say, well, this doe's never kid. And I said, yeah, she's had like 8 kids already. And whenever their udder pulls back up tight like that, I think that's a good trait. But the pendulous udders, you know, I've had some out in the pasture that I've actually taken one of my wife's bras and fashioned, you know, we've actually hung everything up and so that they wouldn't be dragging the ground. And then whenever she kid, we cut holes in there so that the kids could get in there and nurse. And, you know, I've had people going, you're doing funny stuff with your goat. I said, yeah, this is one of the cuter ones here with the bra on, but you know, it's whatever it takes. You know, a lot of people are not set up to weigh their kids when they're born and get birth weight, which that's okay. I mean, if you get a weaning weight and a yearning weight, or even a weaning weight, you have a pretty good idea how that goes, stacks up against the rest of the herd. But if you can, I think a birth weight increases your herd productivity because you got the kidding rate and you have those weights. So that's actually about all I have written down. Anybody have any questions about our program or about your program, or that you'd like to know anything about? We doing all right on time, Randy? Okay. I say if anybody has any questions, and I say our program has always been what works for us. And I have people ask me all the time, and I can't. There's no cookie cutter formula to this. It depends on your operation. It depends on how much land you have. If you do it in a strictly a feeding type situation, or whether you're able to turn them out and let them graze and be goats. It's just what we do, or what we've always done, is what works for us. And what works for us may not work for everybody else, but it kind of gives you some guidelines of where, if you do start having some issues, maybe where you can maybe look at some stuff and go, maybe we could tweak it a little bit this way, or shoot, if you run into a problem, give me a call. I'd say I've got a lot of years of experience doing this. We made a lot of mistakes early on, and my deal is always, if I can prevent somebody else from making the same mistakes that we did, then I'm pretty happy with the way it worked out. So, yeah, if nobody has any questions, you got one.
Do you ever do any inline breeding? Have you ever done?
Yes, ma'am. I'm a pretty big fan of line breeding in Boer goats. That's how we got pretty much all of our best colored stuff, because there was not enough variety out there genetic wise in the colored business. In the colored industry, we had to create our own, and we had to breed some of them pretty close. Red Racer, who was our national champion buck, and the big red buck we called Partner, they were half brothers, and we bred their kids back and forth for years, and it was a really good, successful combination for us. So line breeding is something that I think works pretty well with Boer goats, and then there's always the adage that they stay in the horse business. You do it, and if it works at line breeding, and you're a genius, and if it doesn't work, then it's inbreeding, and you're an idiot. So it's basically the same way with goats.
Do you have a limit how far down you go with that?
I breed. I've always bred kids out of brothers, half brothers. Go back to the grandfather and the daughter. I've never actually intentionally bred a buck to his daughter. That's something that I try to stay away from. I know some people that do it, but yeah, I mean that half brother to half sister thing works pretty well. Which they're out of the same buck, different does. But yeah, I mean, I know some people. Terry Blair is one that'll push the envelope pretty much. He's got a program that was actually developed for cats, and it shows the inbreeding coefficient. You line up he's actually made like 10 years worth of breedings on down the road, and some of those inbreeding coefficients are around 22 to 25%, and that's really pretty high. That's like breeding father to daughter and mother to son and that type of stuff. Normally they recommend that you stay under 15%. So 25 is pretty high, or 22 is pretty high. Yeah, sure. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank y'all for your time, and I'll be around. We'll be doing the producer program, and anybody got any questions, we'll be happy to help you out.
We have the producer panel next. Guess there's always something good up here. So what we're going to do, so now we have our goat producers on. So you're going to be tired of talking here in a minute, but what we'll do is we'll set some chairs up here. And, I'll try to space them out 6 foot. And I usually just pick people, so if I pick you out, please don't be offended. So, Brock, do you want to come up? I always pick on Brock. Brock, I mean, not Brock. Brock. And then, Windmill, do you want to pick guys want to come up? Randy, it's you. Okay. Anybody else would they like to come? I know all these guys, so I know I can kind of pick on them a little bit. Do you guys, do you want to come up? You're on the committee. Mr. Bear here, we'll get him up here. And then, so I got the mic and I'll hand it to him. Even though COVID probably getting in trouble for that. I've turned it off. Okay. Does anybody have a question? So these guys have all been goat producers for quite a while. One raised registered, some commercial. Brock's got a commercial herd too. And so several of them have cows too. Harold's got cows. Randy has cows. You get some cows. So you know when I say multi-species, I've got a lot of people doing it. So Jennifer, you're kind of in the show.
Show and I also want my dad sheeping goats on his side.
Okay, so she's got both commercial and registered too. Most of them do. So.
I have a mixture of commercial and registered.
Okay. See, I'm learning about Jennifer. She's come to our goat seminar several years, and I'm slowly learning. So anybody got a question? I'll give them one of you guys. Yes.
What age do you guys quit breeding your does?
What age do you guys quit breeding your does?
What age is too old?
What age is too old? Who wants to take that first? Okay. We can pass it around.
I guess I don't think there is a given age. I mean, just whenever the doe quits producing, she quits producing. She starts falling apart. It's time for her to go.
Anybody else?
Well, I just got, there really isn't any set age. Until they get to where it's kind of starting to, performance starts to go downhill. The way they either body condition or they're just, they get to the point where they kind of struggle a little more to try to raise, a set of twins or whatever, then it's usually a big side issue, coming in, big time they need to go.
And what, I agree. I think the biggest thing is whenever they get to a certain age, their milk production just falls off. And whenever they can't produce milk, they can't raise kids. And I've had some, depending on the quality of the doe, if I think, well, I'll put them in somewhere where they can get all the feed they want. And if they're still not making milk, then they're pretty much done. But to me, that's the determining factor is, like I say, they get to a certain age, yeah, they'll lose some body condition, but if they're still raising kids, then I'm good with it.
Anybody else? Okay, next question.
Like around what age does that happen?
Normally, and In our program, of course, I like to keep, some replacement, you know, I feel like that, you know, each generation that I'm raising should be better than the previous generation. So, you know, a lot of times when they're 5 or 6 years old, I'll actually, put them up for sale, or, you know, if somebody else is interested in some of our genetics, I feel like they're still got some productive years left in them. I'll go ahead and move them, and I'll replace them with some younger stuff that we're some up and coming goats. So yeah, you know, 5 or 6 years, but if it's one of those that you hang on to, 9 or 10, you know.
I've got a doe at home right now that she produced one of my first, well, not really one of my first, but one of my last couple years of showing in 4-H. I'm 27 years old, so that was like 10 years ago. And last year, last kidding season, she produced a single kid for me, did perfectly fine for me. She's 10 years old. That kid weighed in at 12 pounds. He is getting ready to go to market probably in the next couple of weeks. We've been, because of the COVID, we've been holding on all of our market animals, but I'm pretty sure this might be her last year. She has started losing condition for me, and that's where I really look at the condition and body structure of the doe. But it's going to be really hard for me to lose her because she was producing some of my 4-H livestock with my sister and I. But I have some of her doe kids in my herd, so I'm still going to have that genetics in my herd. Hopefully, they will pass on that beautiful mothering instincts onto the rest of the herd.
Who's next? Who's got a question next?
What, we're talking commercial production, do our end users, or, you know, I'm thinking of it like in the cattle market, whether we're talking like yield grades, quality grades, is there a target for us to hit in the meat goat industry?
I'll give you that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that the yield grades are the best way to determine. I mean, in our market, there in San Angelo, the price is based on, it's not actually a yield grade, but it's grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3. The grade 1 or the higher, more preferred goats, they're meatier, and that. But as far as having a yield grade in mind to raise these things to, I don't really see that maybe is not a big issue. Anybody else?
Yeah. I've done a lot of reading on this because I come from the commercial cattle industry. The only thing I can tell that the packers are looking for, from what I've read, is they don't want dairy kids. Dairy kids don't have the meat, so they're looking for more of the meat breed, because they want more meat on the per carcass. That's what they're aiming for more than is dress weight percentage, and the meat animals will put more dress weight percentage on the rack.
Yeah, and I think that's where they get the grades 1, 2, and 3, because your grade 3 is going to be your dairy or dairy cross type that are not as muscular as the 1s and 2s. So yeah, I agree.
His PowerPoint's got selection 1, 2, and 3 in there. And if you look at prices, selection 1 is what they always quote high prices for. Sometimes they'll say 1 and 2s, and then the 3s definitely they're going to
Always they're always discounted.
And to me, it kind of seems like there's a moving target too, because like, I'm thinking of like 3 years ago maybe, that it didn't matter if they were 100 or 120 pounds, they still brought a good price. And like last year, it kind of seemed like that 60-ish pound seemed to be the sweet spot for me.
Sometimes it just depends on how short the buyers and the packers are. You know, I've taken stuff up there that's just junk and brings, you know, a lot of money because they're short. You know, if it's able to walk through the ring, they'll buy.
that answer your question, Pat? Anybody else?
Where do you guys all sell your goats?
Where?
Yeah, like at the sale barn or do private sales?
Might take them to sale barn, take them to for the livestock. They bring buyers in from all over the country. I know they'll ship semi-loads to Pennsylvania to slaughter plants. And usually they'll average 600-700 head a sale every week.
And honestly, that's where a lot of Lincoln County go. A lot of our people go there too.
Where is it?
Colby, Kansas.
About 2 hours straight south of here.
Verdigris, so in Nebraska, because I studied it, Verdigris has a really good sale for sheep and goats. It's a large one. Palmyra has a pretty good one. We had one in North Platte, the guy quit doing it. So your choices are,
Fort Collins.
Fort Collins is another good one. The Panhandle people go there. Where else? Clay Center, Kansas. Some people go there. But in Nebraska, you're limited. What's that? Columbus, yeah. Columbus is another one. Who did? Wahoo. Okay. And Sutton's, that's right. Sutton's by Clay Center. Right? East of Hastings, there we go.
It's hard to judge a book by the cover too. When I first started going to Colby, and I hope nobody sells cattle down there, but
Here,
first,
let's get this on.
The Colby sale barn is the cattle cull market.
yeah, the first time I went down there, and I got there in time for the cow sale, and I was like, holy cow! I've never seen such sorry looking cattle in my life. But man, when the sheep and goats started coming through, they were on the phones and they were working the phones, and I think it's probably one of the best markets in the country. And then we also sell some stuff from home breeding stock, production sales too.
Jennifer, where do you sell? Let's give her that.
We take our sheep and goats down to a guy in Smith Center, Kansas. He's kind of a middleman before they go to the slaughterhouse. So we avoid the sale barns altogether. We go straight for market price. And so pretty much every month until Christmas, we are loading up a stock trailer full of sheep. So about 25 to 30 head of fat lambs, ranging from 120 to 140 pounds. The goats will be probably going in the next month and a half. And they're ranging from 60 to, if I'm lucky, 80 pounds. But other than that, that's where we go. We try to hook up with his trailer for the calls. He usually brings in a trailer about once a month. If not, it's every other month. But we avoid the sale barns altogether, straight for the market price. That's what we do. It's just easier. And it's 2 hours south of where we live. We live north of Kearney. So, and if you look at it for us, where we sit, it's over 2 hours to any sale barn. And for us to go to a sale barn, we would be losing on commission. Go down to him, all we're spending is the gas. So it doesn't matter where we go for us. It's just, where do we get the better price? And working with him, we see a better deal. And it just seems more economical. And it's, instead of us trying to hook up with that date of that sale barn, we're working with him on our schedule, on his schedule. Especially, he's in Kansas, where his little facility is. If it rained before, we don't go down because we usually end up having to get pulled out of the ditch. And that's where we do. It works out for us. We've been doing it for the last couple of years, and we're probably going to do it forever.
He also buys state fair goods.
Yeah, he's bought in the county
Same
fairs
guy
and
buys
state
fair
fairs.
Okay, he did it one time.
Yeah.
He bought Nebraska State Fair and Exorbitant for a long time. Then he just followed.
Okay, well, knowing the people that run it, sorry.
He's been doing it for many years. So, I mean,
I'm glad I got you up there because you had a different answer, because we need to get a variety of people where they're going. Ron, where do you guys, you go to Fort Collins? don't
Well,
you?
down here, it's closer for us, so we're in Shadron, northwest Nebraska. So I mean, it's usually, a lot of times, depending on, usually we take some of our sheep and stuff to Newell.
Right.
But, and most time, goats and stuff, we take it mostly to Centennial, Fort Collins.
Okay.
We're kind of at a loss. I mean, it doesn't make a difference when we go east of Nebraska. It's still about 4 hours either way, so.
Our situation is a little bit different. They're in San Angelo. We actually do have the largest sheep and goat market in the country there. It's not always the best prices. I know a lot of people that will haul to Fredericksburg or Goldthwaite, which was in about 100 miles of San Angelo, and they think they get better prices there. Our deal is, we've been doing this for so long that pretty much the only thing that we take to the auction barn is stuff that doesn't cut it. Pretty much all of our goats, even if, I mean, now I don't have a lot of goats. We just had a production sale up in Cookeville, Tennessee, Labor Day weekend. I had 15 head. So basically all our stuff is registered full bloods. They run through our production sales. We get we get anywhere from 700 to 1,500, 2,000 a piece for them that way. And that's just the way we've been marketing for a long time. So it's just, we don't do the sale barn except for just what we have left over cost.
But you developed it over time, right?
Oh yeah, 20-some years. But I said earlier, production sales, whenever we started, there weren't many and you couldn't get in them. So the first thing we did, we had, when Red Racer was national champion buck in 2006, we decided it was time for us to cash in. So we just decided to put the Color Connection Labor Day sale together. We've been having it about 15 years now. And we've always had it there in San Angelo Labor Day weekend. This year we moved it to Cookeville, Tennessee, because that seems to be a better market right now. We also have the Color Connection May Day sale in Cookeville, Tennessee. So, we have about 15 different consigners from all over the country that come in, and our sales of over the last several years, we'll try to put around 100 goats in those production sales, and they'll average $1,500 to $2,000 a piece. And that's high-end breeding goats. Our sales are all colored because that's what we do. And we have invited people over the years that actually bought our goats and have our genetics. So it's, we kind of stroke our ego a little bit that way.
Yes, sir. So, how many times, how many kiddings do you guys do a year?
I've got the mic, so I say we actually kid twice a year. We kid in October, November, and then in April and May. Two different sets of goats. I've got some that we've always bred for fall kids, so they're they hit that mark, and then the others that we breed in the fall for spring, so we don't really have much problem getting them bred up. And I will say, like, whenever we did a lot of showing, we bred some does to kid every month of the year because you have to hit those classes, and that you got to really want to do it to do that. I mean, there's never an end to kidding whenever you do that. You're kidding. You don't get that break in between. So, you got to be pretty dedicated to the show world to do that.
Since I show for ABJ, I kind of start kidding about the first part of December. I also supply lottery goats to our county fair. So a lot of the withers for that are birthing during that time period go there too. But my bucks are still out with my does, so I'm shooting for December 1st till about possibly middle of March. And then I also will be having about 10 does kidding about middle to end of June, just to have some more fun in the show ring. My dad, on the other hand, because he does more of the commercial side, he's birthing about April through June for sheep and goats. So I'm just getting back to my regular sleeping schedule.
We usually just do one, we usually start about the lambs and stuff we have, usually, first part of March, and it's usually middle of March to April on our kids.
Yeah, we're first part of the year for some 4-H kids, and the big end of the herd with the commercials and stuff is May for the most part.
Well, we, December to January is little kid, most of them then, little kid for 4-H kids that period. Then we'll kid late May, 1st of May. And then I've been really striving for September here. I've been struggling at it. I just get a few here and there. It's hard to get them to breed for September.
So my question would be to Mr. Dusek. So are your commercial people still getting 2 kiddings in 3 years?
Yeah, basically,
I know in Texas, and I have a producer for this.
yeah, there's a fair number of the commercials that, they're breeding, they're getting 3 kiddings in 2 years. It's purely about numbers. They're getting more kids born that way, and they use their does up a little quicker than those who just breed or kid twice a year or once a year, and it seems to work, and I think Texas may be a little bit more of a unique situation climate-wise. I don't think we don't have the big swings like we do here. So I think getting them to breed out of season is not really that big a deal. But yeah, there's still a lot of the commercial breeders that are breeding for 3 kid crops in 2 years.
For the breed ones.
Some of the 4-Hers, people that sell 4-H clip do in December, but December is a challenge because it's
We
cold.
start December 22nd, we'll be done December 31st, with 17 adults.
I would like to do
Christmas is
them all
at my
then.
house if you want to.
I would prefer to do them all then, but I'm limited on barn space, so that's my.
We built with never barn, so we wouldn't have the space.
Yeah, you have to have barns. If you're doing December kidding, you have to have
They
barns.
all have their own stall now, even the horse business.
Okay. Corfields, and I didn't have her talk, because I have before, but they do 3 in 2 years on most of their goats, and there's some advantage to numbers when you do that, and so our budget we're going to look at next is, I think that's how we have it. I think we have 2.
So you can almost do like you would house, calf in the spring and calf in the fall, and you have to have 2 sets of goats to do that.
No. So Lynette, you want to tell about yours, because I think yours is kind of unique. Sorry, I put you on the spot, but hers is kind of different than most people's. Go ahead.
Well, you're reading. Oh, I don't know, like.
I broke it. I put her on the spot.
Since I'm kind of doing it by myself now, I don't have very many nannies now, so I get it in 10 head in November and 10 head in January, and then 30 some head in April. And those that get it in November are half kids are bred now. So, and how I do that, I just pull the kids, and usually they'll breed back in that first week after you pull the kids off. Most 99% of them.
So what age are you weaning your kids?
We wean at 60 days. And then they're usually at market by 90 days, except for the replacement.
Well, ours were usually all gone by 8.
you.
Thank you.
I talked about it.
But anyway, so there's lots of different ways you can, notice she kidded early, or she weaned early, 60 days. That's probably her success, but that, if you start looking at numbers of production, if you're a commercial guy, that looks pretty good.
They don't leave my house till they're 50 pounds.
I kidded 30-some head the first time there was in April, and they all had twins, 9 of them had twins, and they all had them. I didn't have any kids problems on them, 18 months of age. They were those I raised last year. They were born in February of last year. They had their first kids in April, and I didn't have any trouble with them, 100% birth rate, and sold them off, didn't have any death loss on them. And I don't know.
Out there where we're at, most of our market is basically, we sell everything from our place. And, we've got returning customers. We sell in, we've got people that come up from Colorado, Wyoming, South Dakota. South Dakota, we also had, this year had some people come down from Grand Island. And like, we kind of do try to make more of a show. And yeah, that's how we use it there. But, we do the shows and we've been, 7 years, and, I think we're doing real good with the size of group that we've got. And
We
stuff.
had here last year, you went home and told us.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
But, we get our returning customers, and that's, I think it has really helped us. We, like I said, or taking them, have to take them to the market, we haven't had to do that. You know,
So it just goes to show there's lots of different ways to raise goats and profitable. The key, did you hear what she said? Call and call and call. And I was told one time by a rancher's wife that she's from Argentina, we went out to a place and I said, you get rid of that one, that one, that one. She goes, now, Randy, you had me convinced, now I gotta convince my sons. They want to keep that cow and that cow. And I said, you remember what I told you? Call, call, call. And so I think that's really important. You stress that, Randy. If there's one thing we can do in this industry, it's call. You got to continually call if you're going to improve your operation.
that's why we asked you about 80 because we got those that are 15 years old, but they're still producing twins and taking care
So
of
if you
them.
get good records on they're doing that,
Fine.
you're still making money.
You're still making it.
Yeah, that's my.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's a difference between culling for productivity or culling to improve your herd. But mostly what we've done, and you know, it was a hard lesson. Like I said earlier, you spend a lot of money on these goats and you hate to get rid of them. But if every year you have problems, we got to the point whenever we were still running quite a few goats, I told my wife, I said, you know, I don't mind doing this. I said, it takes me a little longer, but I said, we got to get rid of these problems. I don't want to have to spend half my time, you know, I've got to pull these, or I've got to catch that doe so that the kids can nurse. I got to milk these teats down or whatever. So basically what we have now is pretty much trouble-free. I just let them be goats, and they've all kidded without assistance, and they've raised their kids, and that's what I've kind of been striving for 25 years.
So we still got a few minutes. I just look and go to 2:10. So any other questions? Anybody has maybe a health question or anything like that? Or... I can't believe this. We always get done late. Always. We're going to be done early this year.
What kind of health issues?
Yeah, Texas, we don't have foot rot because it's just dry, you know. But we do, like I say, in a normal year, we don't deal with a lot of internal parasites, but we have some of those wet springs, that we, they try, you gotta stay on top of where they'll eat you up. And I had a good friend of mine, Dr. Tom Craig he's probably the premier veterinary parasitologist in the country. He's at Texas A&M. And he told me one time, he said, one thing you need to remember when you talk about stomach worms or parasites, 10% of your goats carry 90% of your parasites. And if you can identify those 10% and send them down the road, and that's what, the last 8 or 10 years, that's what we've done. We were of the mentality, because raised on a sheep and cattle ranch, and then whenever we had sheep in the pen, we drenched them because we had them in the pen, whether they needed it or not. That was just one of those things. That's what my dad did. And so I started out doing the goats like that. And then after I talked with Dr. Craig, and he said, he said, you really need to do fecals and do Comanche scores. So when I had some young men helping me, and we'd bring them all in, put them in the pen, I'd have them catch every one of them, and I'd check their eyelids. If they were good, we'd turn them loose. If they were light pink or white, we wormed them. And I think that goes a long way to keep from building up parasite resistance to your wormers as well, because you're not just worming them every time. But also, the next time we get them in, and we go through and do the same thing, and we, record keeping. Anytime there's somebody that has to be wormed, we write their number down. So if we run them in the next time and they've got a low Comanche score, they're white, we pull those out to cull. If they're pregnant does and they're going to be kidding within, we'll keep them around and worm them again. But if they're open and they're Comanche scores, if their eyelids are white or light pink, we just send them down the road. And I think that's really helped reduce the numbers of parasites in our entire herd. I really believe that 10% or thereabouts of your goats carry 90% of your worm load. And we've actually, it's made a tremendous difference in our goats.
Something we've started incorporating Spanish into our goats. And the last time we dewormed, probably the Boers, I'd say we probably dewormed 70% of them. And we probably dewormed 10% of those that were Spanish Boer cross. Just that one cross made that much of a difference.
Yeah, I know people that have had nothing but Spanish goats for years and they've never wormed.
We've got a Spanish buck that my son bought down at Sidebends. And I think we've had him 5 years. And I dewormed him once because I thought that's what you're supposed to do. I've never touched him since. I've never touched his feet.
I guess our protocols are different than everybody's. As my wife can tell you, I hate catching the sick goat. It just drives me crazy. I ain't got time to do it. So usually if they're coming through the chute or hoof trimming or something, I'll check them, see if they're working. If they are, I'll treat them. Do the Comanche scores. But a lot of times, if they continue to just look bad, I'll just convince my wife that one's going. Yeah. It's not staying around because I ain't got time, because I work 70 hours a week in town and help my dad. So I just ain't got time to deal with that.
I don't need to do my parasite later. Pretty much you heard everything I'm going to say. Which is good. Is there any others, or I think we're close to our time. If there's one last question, we'll answer it. If not, we'll give these guys a big hand thanking because it's great. Oh yeah, here's one. Yeah.
Where would you suggest to collect semen?
Where would you suggest to collect semen?
Well, there's any number of good places. REI in Oklahoma, and a lot of people use. Flat Rock Services out of Stillwater. Ron Dilly owns that company, and he put together a good deal. As I said earlier, I've always had Paul Hamilton out of Australia collect my bucks when he's here. I don't, oh, there's a facility in Nebraska. I'm not sure exactly where it is. I've got some friends that bought a lot of goat from us, and they're like 10 minutes from there. So they do flushes every week and stuff because they have a vet right there. I'll try to find out. I'll try to find out where. No, it's not. It's about, they're about 4 hours from here. They're up, and they have a big, I can't remember the name of they have a big cattle reproduction deal. I mean, they do a lot of embryo transfers in cattle, and they just built a goat facility there too. So they've got like 7 or 8 vets in that complex. So.
Columbus, I don't know. Columbus is what he thought maybe. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't, I think I know what group he's talking about. I can't think of their name.
Yeah, I'll try to find that. I'll try to find that out. But I think, you know, they seem to be, I've talked to the vets and they're young. They seem to be pretty committed. They're working on sexing some embryos. They're doing some in vitro stuff. So, yeah, I think they'd probably be pretty good, but I just got to find out. I got to remember.
What's that? Nebraska Bull Service, that's McCook.
I'll make a phone call.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. Who they are.
I'll make a phone call and see if I can find out.
We can find out. That'd be a good thing
Yeah.
for me to have.
Yeah, I'll get it to you.
We'll try to get it to you. You guys got my email. So if not, email me if I don't call you. Sometimes I get busy and forget, but I'll just probably, if you email me, I'll probably just forward it on to you. That's another thing. If I don't have your email and you're not getting an email from my goat list, you need to put it on that sheet of paper so I have it. And I might have it, if it's on that sheet of paper, put next by it and I'll add it to my goat list. Because I have to update it every once in a while, and I take a lot because sometimes their email changes. So if you want emails from me, and I only do a few a year, you're welcome to put it on that list there, on that little sheet I have. Well, I think if you're done, let's give these guys a hand. I appreciate it. We're going to try technology on the next one, and you can open your books to the budget. We're going to talk a little bit about budgeting, and we've already found some issues, so I'm glad that we have you guys here. Elliott, this is Randy. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Go ahead and unmute. I'll get your. Do you have your PowerPoint so you want me to share with you, or do you want me to?
If you want to give me screen sharing permission, I can go ahead and share my screen.
Okay. Okay. So it says all panelists. So you should be able to do it.
Okay.
Try it. See. I think it's working. Hey, we're good.
Does that work?
Yes. So I'll kind of introduce you a little bit, and then we'll start.
Sure.
So our next speaker is Dr. Elliott Dennis. He's our marketing person in the Agricultural Economics Department, and he's got a grant to look at parasite management and how parasites can affect people's budgets or their income. And so the first thing with this project we got, and it's a grant, is we want to look at this budget sheet that I've got and kind of have producers look through it and see where we're off. And somebody already told me we're off in our bucks because we need 1 buck for 30 does. But should the average size goat herd be 30, or should we have it at 70, or should we have it, we have it right now at 30. So I'm going to let him present, and then we'll have questions for everybody afterwards. So kind of think when he goes through. So Dr. Elliott, I think we're ready.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Randy. And as Randy kind of mentioned, I kind of got into this section through a grant really looking at parasite resistance through dewormers. And really kind of the first step with that was, okay, let's try to create a budget for specifically for Nebraska producers and look at how potentially modifications to how we manage animal health can impact overall profitability. Broader to that scope, though, I wanted to talk a little bit about, why we have budgets, and particularly, I think, getting together as producers and really sharing that information. I enjoyed just tuning in for that kind of discussion with a whole bunch of producers. And broadly, I'm going to discuss just about why we have benchmarking or why we even look at budgets in the first place. And then we'll just talk about this tool that that Randy and myself and another person have worked to develop specifically for Nebraska producers, and to really try to get your input and show you how you could potentially use this tool. I'll just go ahead and talk about why we even have, as the ag economist, why we promote the use of looking at tools, and why we even have these types of conferences where people can talk. And it's really about, benchmarking. And benchmarking, the whole idea about benchmarking is looking at how your operation compares with on the average, really, and then really on the percentiles. So we know we're making potentially a profit, whatever that profit is, and then it's comparing that to other people and saying, okay, I know I'm making this type of profit. Well, how does that stack up? And really, if we don't do that, if we get together and we realize there's this gap in benchmarking, and that gap will continue to go through time. So the purpose of benchmarking is to try to align ourselves with kind of where the industry is going, or what the best practices are in the industry. And a budget is a first step in accomplishing that. So one of the, when we talk about using a budget for benchmarking, it really helps us identify those areas for improvement. And at least, for this conference, at least annually, try to take a hard look at our operation and just say, what are we doing well? What do we need to improve on? And what are some ways that we can adapt to try to keep up with industry trends? As we go through this budget and talk about, hopefully some ideas about where we are as an industry here in Nebraska, just remember that it's okay to try to make small-term adjustments, but not to lose sight of our long-term goals and objectives as an operation. So I wanted to give you an example of something that's currently available. FinBin is one location where you can go. One of the difficulties with FinBin is that it's actually, there's very few goat operations on there, and most of them that are on there are for milk production. And so you can go on there, that's the website. And I've emailed this presentation to Randy, and he can send it out to that goat listserv. And so you can actually have all these notes that I have. It's FinBin is kind of unique in the sense that it allows you to do a whole farm, or by specific livestock or crop. An idea of a whole farm would be, let's say you're running goats with cattle and also have a grain operation. It allows you to show, how is that operation compared to operations similar to that. And really you can see like what their budget is. Then you can say, well, benchmarking, we're talking about percentiles. What are the people that are 50 in the 50th percentile? What does their budget look like? What are people who are in the 10th percentile? That's kind of your poor performers. And what are people in the 90th percentile looking like? As I mentioned, kind of one of the spearheads that we were talking with Randy to try to increase this specifically in Nebraska is that there's really only in this benchmarking database right now, there's only approximately 8 operations that you can benchmark on. And so by pooling all that information together as an industry here in Nebraska, we can continue to try to grow, stronger and really increase the profitability as a whole. But just to show you how this benchmark would look like and what this budget, as we start to compile it as an industry together, I want to show you what it looks like for sheep. And I'm going to focus on this whole farm analysis. This gives you an idea of kind of setting the vision for as we start to work with this budget and really try to use it as a long-term endeavor, what we can eventually do with this. So this is for the sheep operations, whole farm. These are the same 54 farms from 2010 to 2019. And this gives you an example of what the benchmarking would look like. You have over here, this is your 10%. Those would be of all 54 farms. These are your bottom 10% in profitability. Then over here is your top 100%, you know, your best performers really. And then we can look at different, you know, metrics. Here is the kind of the net farm 50%. That's when you start to break even. And we can start to say, what are these top producers doing that's making them eventually profitable? So just to give you an example, I just pulled one area where I thought, you know, since we're looking at whole farm, really we see profitability really increases, right, as farm size, you know, crop size increases really. So that gives you an idea of, you know, we can look at profitability across these different percentiles, but really this really starts with having a budget. These are the same 54 farms. And what we notice here, I noticed someone said they worked, you know, full-time job in town. And really we can see as the profitability goes up, right, as we're pulling in some off-farm income. So that gives you an idea of, as we start this budget that we're going to go through, and hopefully just dig in, and Randy will help facilitate some of this there, to really say, okay, the budget is only good as the input that we have, and to really try to see how can we use this tool as a long-term endeavor. And so what we really want to focus on is it, you know, is it intuitive how to use this? Are there things that we're missing as an industry? Are there things that we feel like we need to improve? Are the inputs correct? And the way that we've kind of adjusted it has been look at these production parameters, some revenue, expenses, and some other adjustments. That would be like your non-farm and taxes. So I'll just go ahead and put this up here. I can go ahead and share the Excel sheet if that's more helpful, Randy, and we can kind of talk about how this all links together, or I've just created screenshots here. Which one would you prefer?
So they've got print-offs of the Excel spreadsheet.
Okay.
But I don't know which will work better, which we can see better, I don't know. But they should have all these. So the first page you guys have got printed out, yep. Okay. I think you're good.
Okay, so the first tab in this Excel sheet is, so I think it's actually better if I just go ahead and just share this. Can we all see this here?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
yeah, so the first thing that we have here is what we'll create eventually will be a historical budgets over time. So each year we'll put in the production parameters that were valid for that year. And so we can track this over time. This summary budget is really, you know, the result of the other tabs. So this is kind of like your one-stop shop for everything that you've put in on the other tabs. So you have your main revenues, your non-farm adjustments, your taxes, your variable and fixed expenses. And then down here, what we really focus on, right, is our break-evens, our break-even prices. You know, what do we need to market our animals at in order to, you know, essentially guarantee a profit? So this is this summary budget is the result of all the other production revenues and variable inputs that you have. And the way that we've currently designed it is that you can go in here and you can put in your production parameters. So this would be, the idea would be here is to have what we feel like is an average operation. And then if you want to go in and adjust those numbers to fit your operation, then you can do so.
On the third page.
So Randy, why don't we just have a discussion about just this production parameters right now, and maybe you can help facilitate that with the does, bucks, and kids. Are we missing something? What do those parameters look like right now? And let's probably not the feed so much, but let's just focus on kind of the general flock information.
So okay. First of all, what do you think the number of does we should put for average for the state? I mean, it's all over the board. I know that. Is 30 right? Is that what a lot of people would have? Yeah, Chase, say your head yes. Okay. Okay, so most of them say 30, 35 would be average. Is there anybody that disagrees with that? Go higher? Okay. Okay. So people that are here say 30, unless I don't hear anybody say anything different. That's right.
What about does culled per year? 5 does culled per year.
If you have 30, would you call 5 in a year? Okay. They agree with that.
Doe death, just for, this could be predators, this could be just natural causes.
Would you lose 1 out of 30? It's 1, right? I can't even see it on there. I gotta look at it on there.
Yeah, 1. Yeah, it's 1 out of 30.
Okay. Is that, would you lose 1 a year out of 30? The predators, or it could be just died of parasites, and there's a lot of things it could be. That seemed pretty logical. We really want your input, because we need it to be something that will work for you guys. Okay. It just depends. Yeah. Okay. So I think we're okay with that. It depends on the year, right? Okay. So
And then we have the cull doe cell weight at 120 pounds.
Is that right? You guys think? Average. Let's do an average, because we're averaging on this. 100. What do you guys think? Are we too high at that 120? Think we ought to go to 100?
A parasite does, and you don't have any body. So I would say more down on 90 to 100.
90 to 100. Everybody kind of agree with us on that? Okay, we need to reduce that one. Okay. Now the next one.
Yeah, so this allows you to decide if you're gonna replace, if you're gonna retain and replace, or if you're gonna actually go and buy that. Let's maybe talk about the bucks. Or first, are we missing anything on ducks or on does? Not bucks. Should we be including anything else?
Do we have it down there? Okay. I'm not hearing anything.
Okay.
Remember,
What about
you guys? Go ahead.
Yeah, what about bucks? How many bucks do we need to, effectively breed? Right now we have 2 bucks for 30 does.
Some people say 1 for 30. So the comment is that probably 2, because you're gonna have daughters to breed, so you're gonna need, from a standpoint of genetic variation, you need to have 2. Anybody? I know some people say 1.
We've got 6.
Okay. Okay. So,
16.
yeah.
Oh.
Okay. So, yeah. Okay. So I think we're saying 2, and if it was 70 head, we could still have 2 bucks. See, that's the issue, because as you get more, you still have 2, because you still avoid breeding the daughters. And 1 buck would probably handle 25 to 50 does. But because on the small herd, you're going to have replacements, I think that's why they're thinking 2.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So what about how long are you you feel like you guys, we put down 5 years for before you have to start changing out your bucks. What does that seem similar?
For commercial. What's that?
I think on a small herd though, you're gonna have to replace more officers, you're gonna get that breeding equipment.
Okay. So Ellie, what I'm hearing is some keep them for 7, but a lot of them for 2 or 3 years. It depends on the size of their herd. And with 30 does, you're gonna turn them over real fast.
Okay. So maybe down in the 3-year range.
I think that's a little too much. 4. What do you think? Go 3 years? Okay, you said 3. Do everybody agree with that? For a small herd. And the nice thing is, you can adjust this for your herd. So if it's 70, it may change, right? But there's some economies of scale. Okay, I think we're ready for next.
Yeah, and what I'd kind of encourage you, I mean, if you guys are comfortable with this, would be to try to write down maybe what your operation would be, and we can even start to try to compile on this. Obviously, all of it would be anonymous, and if you feel comfortable and you want to share that with Randy, that might be a way we can start to compile and do some of the benchmark stuff.
So Elliot, if they would take this sheet that I handed out and just write their numbers beside it and put their name on it, that would help us, right?
Yeah, they don't even have to put their name on it if they don't feel comfortable with that.
They wouldn't need to. We don't need a name. We just, you can put your numbers down and can give us an idea to really help us. We've got a few people, but we really need a broader group of people to do this.
So what about so we have buck loss or death loss at 2%. How does that feel? This could be any number of reasons, right? It's not because of this isn't culling. This would be actual death loss.
How many bucks would you lose in 10 years? So they're saying they've lost 1 in 10 years. So that's about what? So 1%? I mean, yeah. So 2 might be a little high. I think maybe go 1. You guys think that sounds better? I'm glad you're doing this because, yeah. And remember, it's on average. But when you do your own operation, you can put your own figures in there, and that's what the advantage of this is. Okay, next.
So are we missing anything with bucks? Should we have culling for bucks? Should we have, are we missing any information on that?
What's that? Calls would be something you could put in there, he said, that they said.
So how many would you cull per year?
So if it was 10 years, think of the 10-year average. That's a better, think of over 10 years, how many bucks would you call? 1, 2. 2 at the most. So they said 2 in 10 years.
2 in 10 years. Okay.
And depending on if you're a registered breeder or a commercial breeder, that can change, right? Am I making sense? I'm not trying to push them. Yeah, that's why we're doing this. Because Randy had to help think this out, and I had some help, but not very many. So I'd like to get it from people that actually do this, so we can get a better budget. Because the better budget we have, then when I bring new producers in, I can say, this is what the average budget is. This is what you can kind of expect. It's going to change with your operation, but at least this is somewhere to start. Does that make sense? Or for those experienced people, they can look and say, hey, put my numbers in there and say, how do I compare? Kind of give you an idea where you're at. Benchmark. Okay.
So let's talk about maybe the kids. So right now we have 50 kids weaned per year. That's off of a dose of 30 does.
Does that seem logical?
Over 1.5. Industry-wide, 1.5.
And I think this was off an operation that maybe kidded twice or two times or 3 times out of 2 years. So we might be a little higher. But what do you guys think? You think that's 50 is too many for 30 does? Nope. So general shaking their heads. Most people are saying we're pretty close on that. Are we enough, you think?
I would expect, I got 30 does, I expect right at 60.
Okay. That's what some other people were saying. I just wanted to make sure. Is that what do you think? You think 60 kids is too many?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we'll leave it right where we're at because I'm getting both sides, and I think as long as we're kind of in between, we're better. Does that make sense, Elliott?
Yep, that's good. So now we have these are for our kids that we're actually retaining for feeding. That's 44 head per year, and then the next line would be if we're actually going out and purchasing kids and to feed them out. Right? So weaned kids for feeding 44, and then kids purchased for feeding of 25.
So how many of you guys purchase kids to add to your numbers if you have 30 head? Anybody doing that? What's that? Have it like 2. Okay. That's been bothering me, Elliott. I don't think we even need that in there because most people don't buy new kids. But the guy they sell more kids or they buy and then sell, because the guy that they used the 1 year for this budget did that. And I don't know of anybody out here that I've talked to that does that.
Okay.
So
So what about weaning? So we can put that down at 0, and then if people do it, they can allow that to just adjust it up. What about kids retained for feeding out?
44 out of 50, is that enough? What's that? Did you hear that? Are they replacement dose or are they feeder kids?
So these would just be feeder kids, not replacement dose.
Okay. So where does 6 go? Is that replacements or is that death loss? From 50 to 44. Did you get that?
Yeah, so I think some of them would be sold. Let's see, 50 plus 44.
I was thinking that's replacements, but I may be
Yeah.
wrong. Maybe that's not enough. That's 6. Or no?
Yeah, I think the 6 is held back for replacement, but the 44 is the what you're actually selling as finished kids.
We're gonna make sure that's right. We'll go down, but okay. Does that sound right? Is 6 enough for replacements? It's about. Okay, that would kind of maintain the herd. So yeah, that's kind of what I think. So, okay, I think we're good there.
Okay, then we have weaning weights at 45 pounds.
Okay, I'm hearing 45 is fair.
And days on feed, I think I heard 90 days, weaning at 60, sold at 90 days.
That's Corfields. So what would anybody else have anything else? And that's kind of why. That's why.
We always weed it.
Okay.
It's just something we've done. I know people are like 50, but our genetics are more a little slower maturing. And I find that if we wean them that early, they quit growing.
And that's the difference on our 60 days, they seem to sprout.
Well, and our deal too, you know, whenever I got kids on their mom, they go on a creep feed right away. So, you know, that last 30 days, they're not nursing a lot, but they're eating a lot more feed. So, I probably.
Ours have the ability to train, and then we just go those out.
So you guys think we're okay there, the 90 days? That's when we're selling it, right, in 90 days?
Okay. So then finished kid weight at 75 pounds. So that would be our market weight.
Is that 75, is that about right? Is that high? Well, it's not after feeding.
We sold the buck kids off of those, and they average 50 pounds to 75.
90 days after weaning, is that what you're saying?
That's a total of 90 days, isn't it? 90 days total.
The 90 days total, you're not gonna have no, that's like 0.83 pounds of gain a day.
I'd say after.
15 and 16. So they think we're a little high here.
I hear like 55.
Yeah, 55, 50. So if they're weighing that, do we sell them at 55, or do we have them longer and sell them at 75? That's my question.
You know, the market climate now, it pays to go up weight. Now. But you get to a certain point and then they start doing more conversion. But, you know, say they're 55 pounds, and I wouldn't try to feed them back 80, probably 70, 75. But that's all, that's money in your pocket.
So are we gonna sell them at 55, or are we gonna sell them at 70?
I'm not getting this, because you've got a weaning weight of 45 pounds, and then you've got a finished weight of 75, so you feed them for 90 days after you. Okay, now this is set up.
Oh, okay. So did you get that, Elliott? It looks like on the way it looks, it's 90 days after weaning, they're on feed, right?
Yeah. So I mean, that'd be what, 30 pounds in 90 days? I
Yeah.
mean, that's pretty low average daily gain. But
So what we were thinking is, it was 90 days you were selling them at. But it's actually 90 days on feed, right?
yeah, post weaning, I think, is what I had it
That's
at.
post weaning. Okay, so then that would be probably 75 or 80. What do you think?
Yeah.
If you did 90 days. So what do you think? Dad, do you want to think 80? I mean, yeah, I'm thinking it might be a little higher than that. It's
That out of the way to gain, so 90 days, you're gonna be putting on 45 pounds.
Yeah.
So if you're a 45 pound goat, on 45 pounds, you can be weighing 90.
There's a lot of those.
Yeah.
When you go to county fair, look at the rate of gains on them, a lot of them are 0.3, 0.4.
Yeah, but they're still.
But they're on that day.
I agree with what you're saying. I see a lot of 0.3s. I mean, the really good goats are 0.5, and I've got some higher than that. But on average, I would say 0.35 is what our average goat would do in Nebraska.
I calculate a lot of my sale market on parade gains.
Yeah.
And I would say we're averaging 3.8 pops. If I have some go over 0.4, I'm.
So figure that out for 90 days, 0.38. See how much that is for weight. Figure that out, 0.38 times 40 days, times 90 days. What's that? 34 pounds. Okay, so let's add 34 pounds to your kid weight when they wean, which is.
79, about 80 pounds.
So we were pretty close. I think it makes sense now that we understand that it's 90 days after weaning that we're feeding.
Yeah, post-wean.
Not everybody's gonna do that, but it kind of gives us an idea. Is that making sense, guys? You think we're gonna feed them 90 days after weaning? If you're going to that way. If you're going, yeah, smaller, then that would be different. But we can put that in there really easy.
Yeah. Okay.
I think we're good there. I think we got that figured out.
Okay. So then the reason why these production parameters are important is because then these will then feed in all to the revenue and expenses tab. So you don't actually have to put those in anymore. So when we pull over here, it will actually already pull in all of that information for you that you're retaining. And then you just have to go and put in essentially just your prices. And since these production parameters, we have both, revenue and expenses off of either does or kids. It just we felt like it was a little bit easier just to put all that information here so it was consistent throughout. And then we have kind of our regular revenue tab here. So this gives you an example of your, you put that in your production parameters tab, and now it will pull over here. Then we can kind of go into the prices and stuff. So Randy, do you feel like it's better to maybe focus on prices, or do you want to focus on the different categories itself? So the prices of those animals will have revenue from our buck sales, our doe sales, our finishing kids, and then we put in this other tab for if you feel like there's other revenues that you're bringing in are specific to your goat operation itself.
So maybe we go through the prices and just kind of go through and see if we're close on them.
Okay. So what are we thinking about for cull bucks per head on a per head basis?
How much? So $1.50 times whatever the weight was.
$1.50 a pound.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll put that in for bucks. Okay, what about does? So is it better to put it on a per head basis or on a per pound basis?
What do you guys think?
I think it's good to where you sell.
Most of the time it's all on pounds, you're saying?
Well, I think out there in Greeley, don't they sell them out of head?
I don't know what to tell you. It's both ways. Some sell by the head, some sell by the pound.
Okay.
But we should be able to get kind of an idea for both, right?
Yeah.
The total.
Okay.
Yeah.
It still calculates back per pound, just when the auctioneer is saying what he's saying, he's already determined the weight and the
Right.
price to calculate what's called it.
Okay. So what do we end up with on that? Okay, we ended up with, let me look at this. Buck revenue.
So I guess we actually didn't put in buck cull weight.
Oh, okay.
So what would cull buck weight be?
How much? 175? That sounds about right? I think that sounds pretty close. 175.
Okay. I mean, so that's 175 times. I mean, that's like.
That was a Billy 230 pounder, about 400. But we can't just do one. We need to do it the averages.
Well, at Colby last week's sale, they were at between 105 and 130 pounds. They were averaging about $1.70.
So about $1.70 at Colby last week. Let's try that. See if
That's
$1.75. Okay, we're close.
$221 a head, something like that. So maybe we were off on that. Okay, I'll go ahead and adjust that because I'll need to put in the buck coal weight and everything. Okay.
Okay. Does that make sense? But I think we're better on that.
Yeah, that's good. So what about the dough revenue? So right now we said we were going to coal 5. What is our? I guess we have our coal weight at. Our coal weight is 100 pounds right now. So, and then we have $65 a head. So that'd be what, 65 cents per pound.
$135. What do you think? So at Colby, they're talking, or at, where's Centennial? They were at 160. 135 is 100-pound dough.
Okay.
But that's a lighter one. What's that? Yeah.
Kind of all over the board at Colby.
What's the
Like
average?
some are, they're called pure boards, and then some are four crosses, so that's kind of hard to. Running, they're all the way from $1.30 to $1.90.
$1.30 to $1.94, so if we did $1.60 kind of in between. That makes sense. But what about weight? $1.60 times what weight?
90 pounds.
$1.60 times 90. Let's figure that out. That'll tell us how many per head.
Okay, so that means we'd have to. So the way this would work, see, so they said
Yeah.
$1.60 times 90, then we'd go back to the production, and now we'd have to adjust the coal weight down to 90,
Okay.
and then we're at $1.60. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. There you go. Okay.
Okay. What about our finishing? So right now, what happens is, when they take out all of the kids that we sold times our sell weight, which we put in our production parameters here. So basically the kids sold times that, times the sell weight, and then you don't have to go and put that in. It already gives that for you. So what is a kid's, we put it at $1.70 a pound, a finished kid.
We might be a little wide. 79.
79 pounds, yeah.
2 to 215. Okay, 250 to 215. I'm hearing. So,
215
yeah,
to
let's,
250.
yeah, let's try the 215. If I get too high, then people will accuse me of being. I'd rather be too low than too high. Because then you look better when you do yours.
Well, if you don't worry about being too high, I'd go lower. Prices are up.
So 215 is not enough. Okay. 276 a pound. See there.
I would go to 215 because the market's up.
And the 50 pound is the range, 330.
Okay. Let's leave it at 230. Let's go for that. It's in between everybody. That makes sense. You see what I say about averages? I'm kind of trying to average it in my head. That could change every year, so you'd have to change it every year. But oh yeah. And so what you do at the end of the year, you put in what your sales were, what your weight was, and that gives you a better idea. Because you really want to look broad term. You don't want to look short term on these because it's really over the year that we're looking at. You're going to hit some low markets, you're going to hit some higher. It's just how it works. Okay, I think we're good there.
So to give an example, all this stuff will then, all our different revenues are summed up here, right?
Yeah.
And then it automatically will go and put it, to the summary tab. And so the summary budget is is something that you don't actually touch. It's just an aggregation of all these other tabs. And so the reason why we did that is just so you can print off this summary budget and say, okay, this is my budget. This is kind of where I'm at. And then if you want to dig into the details, you can go to these different tabs. So let's maybe talk about this one's probably the most. Let's talk about fixed expenses first, because variable is going to take us a little bit longer. But what are we looking at for? I know we're sharing a lot of equipment potentially across operations, but trying to get an idea of, what does this look like? We don't really have an idea of should we measure this on a per head basis? Should we measure it on a per year basis? We're really the 5 fixed expenses that we've kind of thought about: equipment, housing, some finishing equipment, some finishing housing, and potentially some real estate. This would be kind of land leases and stuff. Are we missing any fixed expenses that are pretty much set every year?
So where's taxes at?
So taxes we put into another tab over here. So this would not include taxes.
Okay. Because I don't think I can print that one for you, sorry, but we can try. So farmer equipment, housing, equipment, finishing equipment, finishing housing, real estate. Is there anything else that we're missing there? So it'd be like buildings, fencing. Do you got fencing in there?
We don't have fencing.
Fencing needs to be in there. That's a big thing in goats. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Elliot, I'm sorry, I've looked at this, but now that I'm talking to people, I'm actually looking at it really good.
Yeah.
So fencing, what do you think for a cost for fencing? I mean, it's a little higher for goats because you got a better. But one.
So this would be annual expenses. And this, remember, when we're talking about this is all for our production herd here. So this is our 30 does, our bucks that we have. So
And 50 would be, 15-year lifespan, 20-year, depends on the lifespan. You got to take it into, So what do you think for fencing costs on like a 10 or 15-year basis? Well, for 30 head, it wouldn't be as much, right? 70 head is going to be more. Right. So what do you guys do? You permanent or? That's my question. Movable. Right. That's.
Expense on our place, I guess. Expenses, shock batteries.
But you can also target these rates. There's some advantages to that. There's no bad way of doing this. You can do a lot of it. But what do you think for a fencing? Because I really think about a fencing in there, Elliot. I know that I look at it. I'm sorry.
I agree.
In our area, have a mile of net fencing for goats, put up, have somebody put it up, it's about 7 miles. So, this is like 40, this is 48 net. That's our 6 square. Yeah, that's what he's gotten a lot more.
Yeah. So what do you think of a 10-year average? Like, let's say, how much is it a month? So for 30 head, you can do that on how many acres? Okay. That's kind of what 1,500 a year. For 30 head, is that too much? I don't know. I think it is. So did you hear that, Elliot?
1,500 on how many acres?
She's calculating here. So we're thinking 1,500 a year. That's
And our big goat is,
I don't think we're too far off of 1,500. Exactly.
25 panels around our big goat
Yeah.
at $25. And on my duck pen, there's some doubles on that one side, so there's 2, 4, 6, 7, 8.
We got people figuring. We'll see. We know 30 is going to be smaller than if you have 70 or 1,000. I mean that's. But I think the cost is just going to be less. So it's still going to be.
I just put in one cent from granddaughter to cost me.
85 cents a foot.
I guess it has to go, and whatever you put up, you're gonna have to replace it. Tear it up.
Yeah. What's
So
that?
there's 25 panels around my one goat pen, and there's 25 panels around that big bucket.
Okay, so take that plant.
Then where we had our little bucket, there's 8 panels around his pen, and there's 8 panels around our big
You know
bucket.
this cost, you can write it down so we can do
Oh,
all
I'm
this.
counting, I'm
Okay,
looking at my goat
okay,
pen,
good.
Yeah, they're $25
Yeah.
a panel.
So we've got a lot going on here. Just hold on.
It's okay. Yeah.
Depending on the wire. Yeah.
Hey, Randy. Oh, we got a little break.
Okay. So those of you that wanted the AI thing, the guy that does AI and embryo transfer, right?
Yeah, buck collection.
Buck collection is Luke, Luke, Strelz, Strehle of Nebraska Vet Service in West Point.
Yeah.
You get that? Okay. I think you probably
Is it really?
Google them online. If you don't, you know.
I'll never use him, but I got some friends that live down there, and he's done everything, he's bought a bunch of goats from me. You know, they've done several flushes.
And well, yeah, and part of it is you gotta look at the line where you want.
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's really good, it don't matter who puts it in.
Yeah.
And then we just understand that. Yeah. That'd be about right. It's gonna be high, it's crap, but that's- So, I think you're.
That's $625 for my big goat.
Yeah.
We've got $10,000 to buy a barbed wire fence. That's paying somebody to do it, it's fly. Just take that for a grain of salt.
So we figured 1,500 a year. That's pretty good, pretty close. Is that sound a little low?
I mean, you're talking a barbed wire fence versus, you know, your little steel fence, stuff like that. It's not more than fucking barbed wire.
Plus you gotta have help. When you put up 4 miles of fence, 4 miles,
Yeah.
I figured out 9,500.
Yeah.
I figured close to
1,500, 2,000, what do you think? Where are we doing number? We're close. What's that? Okay, okay. Did you get that, Elliot? We decided on 2,000.
2,000, okay, per year.
Yep.
Okay,
And that could be low, but I think we're close on that.
yeah. Okay, so let's go to our variable expenses here. I know we're a little over here, but right now, I mean, let's focus particularly on our animal purchases here. So we have buck replacement purchases. We had $150 per head.
Yeah. So bucks, is that logical? Should we have a little more there? I think that's a pretty cheap buck, and that was probably mine. That was probably mine. Are you sure? Oh, so that's the one that was there. Yeah. Okay, so what do you think for buck? Okay, did you hear that?
No, I missed that.
She said $150 buck is a junk goat, but
Okay.
1,500 is better. But what do you think the average price for a commercial producer would be? 500. That's not what livestock was. Right. Well, it depends on where you're selling it at. It's different if you're selling to 4-H if you're selling to a market. But I would say, we're thinking 500 to 800, but I don't know if we go just 5. I think we can get can we get a decent one for 5? Okay, he thought we get a commercial buck for 5 easy, so I think that's a good start. Sorry, I told you wrong on that.
No, that's fine. So right now we've selected here in our production parameters not to have any replacement, to purchase our replacement. So we're having all of those in-house. But if we were to go out and buy those, what would a replacement doe be worth per head?
Do not raise what right now we're just raising. Yeah, commercial doe. And see, the good thing about this other than that purebreds, you can put your own figures in there, they'll do the same for you.
I would say 250.
Okay. 250 to 275. Yeah, probably 275 is fair.
So these are going to be, if you went out and bought weaned kids for feeding to feed out. So essentially what this would be is if you bought them at your weaning weight, which was 45 pounds, and you're going to feed them for 90 days to their market weight, what could you go and buy a 45-pound kid for? We put it at 145. That's probably a little low now for the other numbers, but.
What's that? So probably $250 to $3, probably $3 because the 55 we're bringing 3 the other day.
The $3 or $2.70? I heard $250, $3, so $2.75 or $3 there.
I go 3 right now.
Okay.
Just because that's what most of them are bringing right now.
Okay.
I could change.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about, we can look up the prices and stuff. So let's talk about marketing expenses and if we're doing any risk management stuff or predator control. And then let's get into these. This is going to be the big on labor. What are we paying for marketing?
No.
So some of them are doing it on Facebook, but some of them are going to sell them. What's the sell run cost? The commission. about $7 a head for commission, and then you've got transportation. Exactly. Further, the more it costs.
And for us, if we take out states,
Okay. So what else do we have there?
So we have, so right now we're differentiating, if we're selling bucks or does or kids, we have a different marketing expense here. Is that accurate?
Feeder kids, do they all go in one book?
So what now?
Feeder kids, they usually don't bring it in.
Oh, and feeder kids, they don't bring a different price per pound. I'm just trying to look. I need to look at this instead of that. I can't.
Yeah, so we're on a dollar per kid basis. And, once again, this is pulling the number of kids that we're finishing. So we've weaned 50, we're retaining 6, 44 kids we're selling, and right now we're marketing those at $1.09 per kid.
That's not right.
Okay.
So those it's 76 what we're marketing them at, right? 76 pounds. So or around that 70. So that was
79 pounds, yeah.
Didn't you say 220, 225, 250? Is that what we said on that? Okay. There you go.
Okay, 250.
Yeah. That's per pound, right?
That's per kid.
Per hundredweight. Oh. Oh, the price. Okay. Yeah, that'd be right. Yeah. Okay.
And then this would probably be the same, the weaned kid marketing expenses.
The marketing. I'm sorry. Oh, you're talking expenses, aren't you?
Yes, yeah.
I was thinking.
This is, what is the cost to actually market the animals for sale?
$7, is that right? Commission?
Yeah, I think so.
Because of the size and stuff?
I'm pretty sure there's 7.
Yeah. Okay. So is 7 a good figure for marketing cost? 7 for all of them.
Okay. So is that 30 head operation, for a 30 doe operation, are they going to be, first of all, I guess we haven't really put a number of acres down. What could we raise it on 30 head on for a number of acres? And on that, are we going to engage in any sort of, forage insurance or different marketing costs? So right now we didn't really put anything down for, because we didn't know how common it was for that to actually occur, to ensure our rangeland or forage.
We'll ensure that the forage rations.
Insurance plans that we have to do that when we live on a facility. So if one got out and got hit, then who can hit it?
That would be liability. Okay. But the pasture rangeland forage insurance, nobody takes that to PRF, do they?
We do.
Okay, okay. What is it?
Kind of, where we're at, it depends on the county.
Okay,
To be honest with you, like, if you want on a per head basis, I think it runs in that $230. Forage.
so we have one producer that does that.
But we only cover a forage ground.
Forage, okay, okay. And they just do their forage. They don't do pasture.
Okay. What is that running per kid?
She's a figure. See, at least we got the people that have some of this, so at least we have an idea to start with. So when you fill this out for yourself, you just put 0 if you don't have. At least it gives people who do this kind of gives them an idea if they want to do that. Livestock revenue protection insurance, anybody got that?
So that would only be for sheep stuff. So that would be other forms of insurance, but
Yeah, we don't have that.
okay.
So marketing and hauling, just figuring out, I'll give you that one in a minute. Marketing and hauling, so cost to haul,
That would be your transport that you guys were talking about, other than sale barn receipts or commissions.
I know. I don't know, we can figure so much a mile and just kind of average it. 60 a mile.
$1.60.
$1.60 a mile.
That would give you more than just, like,
Wear and tear. So $1.60.
$1.60 per loaded mile. Okay, I'll go ahead and adjust that and figure out what average distance to. I mean, what's our average distance to a sale barn for most producers? Is it 60 miles, 50 miles?
I'd say more like 100. The sound is 200. For you guys, it would be 100, right? About 90.
You're 32.
You're 32. So 240 for some of them. So you guys sell Facebook, so if we figure 100, does that sound about right on average between everybody? Okay, 120.
150.
Yeah, about 120 is what they said.
Okay.
See, we're
Okay,
doing-
and then what about I know some people engage in predator control. Do you guys, how common is predator control? And if it is, what is that?
like basically dog food.
And we have additional, I mean, that could be, I don't know, your rifle.
Okay. The donkey that runs with them, okay. Who has Great Pyrenees? You guys do. Is the $1.50 a kid about right for dog food? I know I'm asking you a lot of questions. Okay, for risk management, that pasture forage insurance, 60 cents. What did you say? 60 cents a, yeah, 60 cents a kid. Actually, a doe, so that would be times 1.5, or, yeah. It'd be a little divided by 1.5, so it'd be a little less.
60 cents per doe. Okay.
Which she's figuring for kids at that time. About 40 cents per kid. If you do 1.5 kids, so.
Like our dog food runs about
$40 a dog is what they're saying, dog food per year, per month. Yeah. Sorry, you can tell I don't have any dogs. So $40 a month for dog food times 12 months. Hey Harold, is that $40 for more than one? Is that $2?
It's about $7 per kid.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
This is help. We're getting some good figures in now, but I feel better.
Are we engaging? I heard donkeys. Are we doing any other sorts of predator control?
So any other donkeys, llamas, anybody got those? Donkeys and llamas, we do have those. They eat grass. And they eat the grain with goats, so I don't. So whatever your feed costs off your goats is gonna be about the same for the donkey.
Okay.
So that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, anything else for predator control? I think we're good.
Okay, so now we have labor. These are obviously, so labor, fuel, medical, and supplies would be our kind of our big hitters actually. So
Supplies, we have at $1.45 a kid. Does that seem low? Right, we already took out the fencing. It would be. Is that vet supplies?
yeah, so we do have vet supplies. We have at $220 per kid.
We have vet at 220. Okay. Okay. And then you've got Wormer too. So what do you think? So you think they're thinking on the vet we're a little low.
Okay.
$3 a kid? No, this is vet supplies. That's fine. Okay. 350? So what do you think? $3.50, $4? Five? Okay. Did you hear that? 5.
Yeah, $5. Okay.
Yeah, right. Nope.
Yeah, we can always work it backwards, right? If we know our annual sales or our annual medical bill is $500, then we can just back calculate. So,
Right.
what are we spending annually on fuel?
Fuel.
This is for the 30 head or the 30 doe operation.
It's not the whole operation, just the goat. It is. You gotta do it for percentage. Well, and see, like if you bought cattle feed and dog food, you would take percentage of cattle and a percentage of dog. That's how they would do it. I'm not an economist, but I know how that's calculated. You got to adjust it. And sometimes the adjustment's not accurate, but that's the only way you can look at it. Right now, guys, we have $4.35 a kid for fuel. $4.35. I have to look at this. I'm sorry, I can't tell.
Yeah, so that would be $300 annually in fuel.
So for 30 does, they have $300 in fuel. And that would just be for the goats, not for the cattle or anything else. Yeah, that sound a little low. Yeah.
That's the big one. For us, that's probably about right,
Okay. I'm hearing we're close on fuel.
Okay. And what do we, so hired labor, we can do the same thing. Are we hiring out labor to help with, kidding or just regular management? Once again, this is on the 30 doe operation.
So here's the answer to you. For only 30 goats, we need hired help. So one person said $40 a day for meal to help. And help a couple times, I know. So Elliott, did we put in labor for them to pay back for them? Is that what this is for, or is this?
No, yeah, that's a good point. This is not paying yourself for your labor. This is like if you actually were to go out and hire labor to help out.
So for 30, do we have to hire once in a while to help? Or do you think you can do it by yourself?
You can do it yourself, but I know there are a lot of people that wouldn't, like trim, and I know a lot of people that won't trim.
So what do we want to put in there, guys? We have 725. That may be a little high.
So think about it like on an annual basis, maybe number of days times a day rate.
Yeah. So how many times would you need? Yeah. So how many times would you need help with 30 goats? I guess that's the idea of it.
I like that idea.
Bears still cost money.
Yeah.
Depends on the breed. Yeah.
So what do you think? You want to put some labor in there?
We get out.
Yeah.
1 week of our goat. And we give her $300 while we're at work.
Okay.
I thought that was pretty good.
But you have other income too, which if 30 goats, you're gonna have to have other income. You can't do it, but you can't make it pay if you don't have somebody. If you couldn't live on 39 goats. So what do you think? You want to do some labor or not? You want to do $1? $1 a kid would be what? You said how many kids?
So if we're paying $40 a day potentially, how many days a year are we gonna need help out? Maybe when we're loading, maybe.
Yeah. 2 or 3, maybe 4 days you'll need help. Am I off of that? What, 10? Some people saying 10.
Okay, 10 days at $40 a day.
See what that is.
That's $580 a kid.
Oh, a little better. Probably. I think it's a high at 70, 30 goats, you should have like 2 hours. Yeah, I wouldn't. We might be a little high there, but we'll.
Okay.
So what else?
Right. I think that's it. I mean, we have some, if we're doing some so how many acres would we be able to manage 30 goats on? I know we're running them generally with other breed or other animals, but.
You ran 22 on 80? On 8. But there's some supplement there. About 20? That's kind of what. Because you have 7.5 per cow, per 1,000 pound animal.
It was orange.
Yeah. So 20 acres.
20 acres for 30 does. Okay.
But
Okay.
some would be less if you're doing more supplementing. We know that. So.
Right. So I think that's pretty much. I mean, we have taxes here, but I think that's fine.
We can do that.
So I guess the idea is, what we've tried to create is what we kind of perceive as a tool that you guys can use, or as Randy was saying, if people are wanting to, he's out there talking to, cattle operations or even sheep operations who want to add, a goat enterprise to their operation. This will kind of help them. Also, hopefully we can do this at, once a year and just kind of confirm where are we at as an industry, and we can start building some historical benchmarking and find ways to potentially grow the goat industry here in Nebraska. I'm sorry, Randy, I took a little bit more time, but just want to thank all of you for just coming out. I know it's a busy time, and just kind of being here and helping us work through this budget. We'll eventually probably this next month, we'll go ahead and post this online, and I'll send it out to Randy as well, and he can send it out to that Go listserv so you guys can have it. And the way that we will have it set up is, you'll be able to be able to print these budgets off, and it'll be essentially a 1-page sheet. So as you're trying to make changes or make management decisions to your operation, just take, 5-10 minutes and just work through some of the numbers and say, hey, is it going to pay, to put in that new fence, or is it going to pay to, rent some new equipment? Just some thoughts there, and I'll just go ahead and turn it back over to you, Randy.
Okay. Thanks, Elliott. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Thanks for having patience with us on this. I really think this will make us a better budget for the future for producers. And of course, you can always adjust it for you, but at least it gives us, so I have a person wanting to come in to me to look at starting with the goats. At least I have something to give them. So here, this is kind of what we're looking at, you know, because it's better for people to know ahead of time than jump in and wish they'd never done it. You know, let's look at it and see how it fits your operation. And budget's only one part, as you well know, Randy. There's a lot more to it. There's management to it too, but at least it gives us a start in it. You're doing a lot of that too. Okay. Do some supplementing. Yeah, and everybody's gonna be a little different on that, but we really do appreciate. I think the key thing is to get it started, and then if we go to the Goat Federation and we can get their database there too, and you can look at it too and look nationally. You know, I've got numbers for sheep people for the last 10 years in different states, and I can tell them we're working on one for Nebraska too, because we don't have anything in Nebraska. And I don't know how close Texas would be to us because I think they're a way different environment. And so that's the issue we're having. That's why we're doing this, is to try to help. If I'm going to be involved in sheep and goat people, I want them to be profitable.
Randy, you know about the NSIP, the National Sheep Improvement Program.
Yes.
We just got word the other day. We met with ASI people, and I think they're gonna let us put together NGIP, a National Growth Improvement Program, kind of under the same umbrella.
Great.
So we're gonna be working on that. We got a lot of irons in the fire right now. But yeah, I'm pretty excited. I mean, I've actually used some of the NSIP programs for my goats. So
Yeah.
I think if we had one that was tailored to the goat, it would be great.
I agree. So what I did to start these budgets, I went to the sheep people. I took theirs and then I called goat people and I says, tell me your numbers for these issues. And so I just put it in there, and it's very helpful to have that one from sheep because at least it's got me a start for goats. Yep. Let me get this. We'll go through the spare time. It's not going to be long as we talk about most of it. Just kind of review. I put in a couple articles in there from Ohio State. Why would I do that? Because Ohio State is similar in where they're located as Nebraska. We're a little drier than they would be, but we have cold weather like they do. So I wanted to see what their vets were saying because I don't have anything out of Nebraska. And, you know, so there's some really good information on those two sheets on parasite management. And we'll kind of go through and talk about them. For those of you that are new, if you have goats, parasites will be an issue. The three things for goats: fencing, parasites. What am I missing? There's one other one I'm missing. But those are the fencing and parasites are really the two main things that you need to be aware of, you need to get educated on before you start producing. If you don't, the parasites will make you lose lots of goats and you'll learn. And fencing, well, they'll get out. Coccidiosis is another one. Herd health is different for sheep and goats than it is for cattle, a little bit, so you're going to have to adjust there too. But parasites are really big, and every year I do something on parasites. Why? Because, you know, 2 years ago we had all that rain. I had people's herds were dying off. That's how bad the parasites were. And so we did some things. We got some things started, like supplementing with a protein source, using a different family of, and sometimes using 3 families like what we're doing now. And I'm going to talk about that. That's the new recommendation, is using all 3 families of the dewormers is more effective than using one. What's that? Oh, sorry. Okay, so we're just going to go fast. This is just a worm cycle. This is a sheep, but it could be a goat too. You can see that, you know, they defecate, eggs hatch. There's two, according to the vets that I've read, there's 2 larval forms they have to go through. And they crawl up this grass, okay? When it's wet, we have really wet years sometimes in the spring. That one year we had it in the summer. Custer County had more rain that year than, and there was a lot of problems with goats in that area. But they crawl up here, the animal eats it, the larvae grow, lay more eggs, and it's a vicious cycle, right? There's a picture of the barberpole worm in kind of the stomach of a ruminant animal. And that's the eggs and the manure, flotation there. And there's the larva. Just think about that when you're in sheep and goat pasture, you pick up a piece of grass, put it in your mouth. Those are going in your mouth, but they don't hurt you if they don't like it. Yeah.
What is that time frame?
So from here to here, so they'll start putting these out. If they've got, so in the spring of the year, when an animal's getting ready to kid, these things hibernate in the stomach, and if you don't worm most of them, you need to worm them all. Those worms break loose and they start putting out eggs like in May and June. And so it doesn't take very long, 2 to 4 weeks, I think it is.
Okay.
I have it on one of my other slides, but I'm trying to remember. Is it 5? Maybe it's 5 weeks.
Yes, 5 weeks.
Yeah.
The cycle, yeah.
And so why did I say rotate your pastures every 6 weeks? There's a reason behind that. The 5 weeks of the reproductive cycle, it kind of breaks that somewhat. Okay? And that's why we say that. They're blood sucking, they're highly pathogenic, cause anemia and hypoproteinemia, bottle jaw. I'll have a picture of that in a minute. And it's probably the most important parasite in sheep and goats in warm climates and in northern climates in the summer. And it's getting worse in our area. We used to not have as much trouble as we do. There's just another picture of all the blood loss. This is the animal that died from parasites. You see the barberpole worm, and think of the old barberpole with the blood vein. They have a blood vein going through it, looks like a barberpole. Us older people would know that, but some of the youngers never probably saw a barberpole because they don't put them up at barbershops anymore. Think of the red and white little stripe. That's why they're called it. There's another picture of one that died from parasites. There's bottle jaw. We'll talk about this here in a minute, looking at the eyelids for Fumancha. And I'd say this, but I'm out of Fumancha cards. I need to order some more. I usually have some here for training, but I don't. But if you want one, we can do some training. So basically on Fumancha, we pull that down, that lid, and we look to see how red this is. So if you're here, you could probably lose that animal. You got to be careful what anthelmintic you use, but it's dire straits. So when I worked in Missouri, I had these people from Florida who had bought the goat herd. She called me and she said, "Randy, my goats are dying." I said, "Do you have any worming with you?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm coming out. We're going to worm everything that looks bad." And she never lost another goat. We were able to get on it fast enough. She'd already lost 2 or 3 kids when she called me. But we didn't do all of them. We just did the ones that looked like they needed it. And Fumancha works pretty well. If they're here, they're good. You don't need to be worming them. Why don't we want to worm them? Because we want the worms from them. We want them to go ahead and put them out in the pasture because they're susceptible to the anthelmintic. These that we've wormed here are going to have resistant worms. And I got a picture of it earlier, or in a later slide. They're going to have resistant worms that won't work with the drug you used. Okay? When we use 3 drugs, it's a little different because it kills more of them. Okay? You need to examine every 2 weeks at the beginning of worm season, which is usually late May, June. Okay? You'll see some in July too, but that's when it really starts to hit. And during critical times, and then every 4 to 6 weeks during cooler times of the year. So as it gets towards fall, you have less problems, but you still can have parasites. But during the winter, we tends to stop. But what happens is that worm hibernates in the stomach and it sits there, does nothing, and then when we start getting ready for kidding, it explodes out of the gut. And you get this rising. So a lot of times we're going to worm the ones that are bad before kidding, or sometimes most of them. Now, what Ohio State said in theirs was to worm all of the does that had triplets, twins, anything that looked thin, but the ones that had singles or were dry, don't worm them. I don't know if that's true. That was the thought they had, because they said that way you're not getting all of them. But they said you got to be careful because you could see some of those others show up later on. Treat any animals that score 4 to 5. If they're young, like kids, you need to treat 3s. But 1 and 2s were good. So, and like he said, most of the worms are in 10 to 20% of the goats. And my thought is get rid of them. I just tell people get rid of them. But I've had people buy parasite problem goats. And I said, what worm are they using? And they said, well, they use this. I said, what did you use? The same thing. I said, that wormer's not going to work because that's what they've used and they build resistance up. So you're going to have to go to something different. So you kind of need to know when you're buying goats what kind of parasite program they have. You really do. You really need to talk to them. Otherwise, you're going to buy resistant worms put on your plate. It's not a good thing. The other thing I'll talk about is some things we can do, like putting them in a dry lot and worming them with 3 different drugs for 30 days, keep them away from everything else. So you put those there and not in the patch. So these worms can lay about 5,000 eggs per day. You think about 300 worms, that's 1.5 million eggs per day per animal. And all those eggs go out on the pasture and the animals consume the pasture. So you can see over 1 billion eggs over 3 weeks could happen. So for fecal egg counts, and I've not talked a lot about them, but they're really good for us. They're a good quantitative measure. They tell us how we're doing. So you take a manure sample. Basically, it's better to take it out of the goat than to pick it up off the pasture so it's fresh. Put it in a bag, put it in the refrigerator, take it, don't put it in freezing. It's got to be above freezing. Take it to your vet, have them float, tell how many eggs per gram are there, and that's going to tell you how you did on your worm, or if you're starting to see a resistance problem. Or some people use it even to look at, do I need a worm if I got a lot of infection? The 3 main uses for worm egg counts: detect worm resistance. And I would do this in the summertime when they're the most active and the worms are the most active, because you're going to see more there. Or like June, like the really high level months. June, they're going to get a lot of exposure in May, but mainly we're going to start seeing it in June and July.
I just had a thought, something that Dr. Craig told me several years ago was when you're worming these goats because of their increased metabolism, if the wormers would work a lot better if we'll cut them off feeding water for 24 hours before. Exactly. And then worm them and it makes the efficacy better.
Safeguard is spatially true. The white worm is especially true. But all of them will help. Take them off feed for 24 hours. Because the reason you do
Before or after?
before.
So that their stomach's empty whenever.
Right. Because otherwise it passes through them too fast. They're very good at detoxifying their rumen. And that's one way to get them to not be able to do it. Yeah. That's exactly right. You monitor your pasture contamination by looking at egg counts. The other thing is you can also select animals for their genetic ability to resist. Okay. So if they look pretty good, they don't have a lot of worms, just like your buck, this is the ideal way to look at that. So what are limitations? Well, they're a day-to-day variability, so they could change. It's a one-time snapshot of the degree of egg shedding and how much pasture contamination. That's another big issue. But according to this article I read about, you need about 15 animals to get a reliable estimate of a group. So if you're going to do fecal egg samples, you need to do at least 15. According to this, this is Ohio State. And that would give you a pretty good idea of the group average. But here's what I would do. If I was doing that, would I take it from all the nice fat goats? No. I would take from the fat goats, from the thinner goats, just so you have a variety of, otherwise you're probably going to be partial torsion. These are the 2 fact sheets that I gave. I think I gave you both of them. I really like their articles on there, and because they're kind of in a temperate climate like us, I use them more. Here's your class of the worm. There's really only three in the United States You've got your benzimidazole. These are your white wormers. We call them kind of white wormers. Then you have your, I can't even pronounce that name, but any of your Rimatel, that's another one. And then your microlides are your Ivomex, your kind of your clear liquid ones. Okay? And Sidectin used to be pretty good, but they've kind of worn it out too already. This is from the Migo handbook. I'm not a vet. And here's what I'm going to tell you. Extra label use required a veterinary client-patient relationship, right? Everybody know their vet? Work with their vet. And some of these drugs you cannot get without, all these extra label drugs, you have to have a vet's prescription. But if I was you, I would talk about all these with my vet because I think they're going to help you in the long run, keep you from getting as much resistance. This is just, yep.
Back up. One of the big things, like with the safeguard, you're quote 2.3 cc's milliliters per 100,000 body weight. Yeah. One of the things from down south, the veterinaries and people I've got to talk to, they wouldn't even give the 2.3 because that ain't even. They would at least double it, or in that case, they would be recommendations of veterinaries and everybody down there of 6 cc's per 100 pounds.
That's why you need to talk to your vet. I'm an extension person. If I put that up there, I would be, FDA would be after me.
So, it is the veterinary deal.
So you really do, and they know. I mean, most of them know that they need to be higher dose. But I got to put this on because this is what is approved. And but you're right. You're right. You need to use a vet on all these because I'm telling you, it won't work with what I've given.
And because the goat's metabolism is so fast, that's why you got to go more.
Two times the cow dose on all of them. On all of them except for I think Levitol because it's pretty hard on them. 1.5 times. And then remember, some of them you're not supposed to do when they're pregnant. I don't know if that's on there or not. So you need to make sure you talk with your vet. Yes.
So on the previous slide, I noticed that the Ivomex was.
The reason I have it crossed out is because most goats are immune to it.
Oh, really?
That's why. I just did that to kind of see if people would ask questions. Do not use porons. Do not.
Not the drench, but you can't put it down their back neither and get it to absorb because the goat's hair will not absorb.
Right. Orally, goats need to be wormed orally. Period. I used to have somebody argue with me on that. There's a shot you could give, and I'm like, no. And
Injectable is best if you give it.
Orally. Always on goats, orally. Don't let anybody tell you different. All the experts that I've talked to say orally, exactly what you said. So this just shows, this is what happens when we treat them with a drug. We get rid of all these susceptible worms, we get resistant worms. So on that pasture, all you have is resistant worms. That's why we don't worm everything, because we want some susceptible worms out here. So when they pick up worms, they're not just picking, so they're still susceptible. And so if you do this, eventually all you have is goats you can't worm with anything. Because it develops resistance over time. This is the, go ahead.
There's been a lot of different hints of confusion. And I've heard this from vets too. You need to rotate your worm. Use this one this time, that one. That's the best way I know to build up resistance to everything.
Yeah, don't do that.
You use one until it quits working, and then you switch. That's, bottom line, that's what you gotta do. Yeah.
And unless you use a combination.
Well, yeah.
But
and that's when nothing else.
But don't do this until everything else quits.
Yeah.
So like the gal I was talking about, I think they were using Sidectin. And then she said, well, they're dying. I can't get it done. I said, we'll get some Valvazin. It's a different drug. Let's try it and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, and let's try the other one. If it doesn't work, Safeguard. If that doesn't work, let's use all three. That's what it is. That's how you have to do it. But yeah, use one till it quits working. Then use another one till it quits working. And then if it gets to where you've got the third one and it quits working, then you got to use a combination. But the key to it working is not to do every goat. Don't do every goat. Don't do that. That builds resistance. And that's what we did for so many years, because that's what I was told when we first started. And then all at once, it's like they completely changed. We did some research, we learned what it was doing. This just shows the drugs here. If you got 2, you got 96%. So you can see as you get 3 drugs, you got 99 there, 99.9 there. So you can kind of see the efficacy goes up with 3 versus 1. But here, see, these were only 40% acceptable, but actually 78% of them were it worked on. Does that make sense? So it actually kind of, in the same way here, that only 50% of them were acceptable to each drug, but the combination, it got 87. So see why we do the combination, does that make sense? But don't do that until you run out of the others. Because we're still building some resistance when we do this. The key is not to worm everything. This is just another one efficacy. So this is the killed and surviving single wormer, 99.1. See very low with 2, and you can see as you increase those. So even at 80% survival, and we still got more with 2 wormers. 1. Okay, let's go on, because there's other things we can do too. So decrease stocking rates will help. Isn't always profitable, but it can help. Provide browse type forages, like these goats here are eating on browse. Some places in Nebraska we don't have a lot of browse, so that's maybe not always going to work. But if you got some browse, it's a good thing to use it. And if you can use it in the summertime when the worms are like that June, July when they're bad, that might be a good time to get them with some browse because they're eating up off the grain. Does that make sense? 6 weeks between rotations, again, we said because of the worm cycle, that's going to help with breaking that worm cycle a little bit. Here's another thing. Harvest the first cutting of hay field with sheep and goats. Let them graze it, then do your haying. What that does is, they're going to put some worm eggs out there in the spring, but when you put up that hay, it dries it out and it kills those larvae. Okay. If you're doing an alfalfa field, you better manage your bloat or you're going to have problems with that. But you can strip graze and move every 3 to 4 days. Why is that? Because it takes a little bit to get those eggs out, so you can kind of break it up by doing just 3 to 4 weeks in a spot and moving 3 to 4 weeks. It breaks up that worm cycle a little bit also. Annual forages can be used in the spring, so you can have a place plowed up, put in forage as you graze it. You don't have a lot of parasites there if you plow the grain. That makes sense. But again, if the goats have a lot of parasites, the forages will have it eventually, right? Because you have that 5-week period. So if they're fairly clean going in, you're not going to have a lot of problems. But it could break up some more. And then pasture grazed by horses or cattle in the fall will be free of worms by next spring for sheep and goats. So there's sheep and goat manure out there that did in the spring, but those larvae have to hatch, and then they have to survive. They have to crawl up that grass. So if they're grazed early in the spring, the cattle and the horses will vacuum some of that up, and they'll die from starvation. The larvae. That makes sense. Well, yeah.
I talked about cutting them off feeding larvae before you worm them. And also to help follow them after you worm them, if you'll leave them in the dry lot just a couple of days, just hay. That way all those worms will be going in the dry lot, not back in the pasture to turn them. That helps a lot.
Another good point. And then so we can use dilution strategies. That's more species, right? Rotate the pasture is going to help some, even though rotated pastures still have worm problems. Don't kid yourself. I heard a rotational person say, we're going to solve all our parasite problems by going to rotation. And I said, baloney. Look at the data. The data says that's not true. And it's not. It helps, but it's not going to solve all your parasites. Forage height. They only crawl up, so keep that forage height higher than 2 inches. They'll still crawl up, I think, 3 or 4, because I see pastures that have them and they still get them at 3 or 4. But the closer to the ground they are, the more larvae you're going to get. So when you graze a pasture really short, all you're doing is helping your parasite problem. You're just increasing. And remember, what you see above ground is what you have below ground for roots. So you're going to ruin your pasture when you have 2 inches of growth. You need to have it 3 to 4 inches. You need to quit then from a good grazing management standpoint. Now in the spring, that's a little different because it's growing pretty heavily, but you do not want to graze it. You don't want to graze it 2 inches. You need to graze it 3 to 4 and get off of it. As soon as that's that, you need to get off. Fix water leaks around troughs. They like water, right? Because they crawl up in that dew. So around troughs, you can get a lot of parasites there. We don't want a lot of water around. Goats don't really like wet areas anyway, and that's the reason, is the parasites. And you're learning that all the time. But fix those. Avoid grass and pins. Like, you know, if we're worming them in that pin and there's a lot of grass in there and we've wormed them in there before, there could be lots of parasites on that grass. So it's better to have it no grass. And, that doesn't always, you can always do that. But anyway. Fence off the moist areas like by your creek and stuff. Some people get by with that fine, but you're going to have more worms crawling up the grass in moist areas because they like that dew on that grass, that wetness. Don't buy resistant worms. We already said that. You should quarantine them aggressively and deworm upon arrival. So, you know, I even recommend, you know, I don't know if this is a good idea, but 3 anthelmintics of drug classes, and you keep them in there 10 to 14 days. I don't know if that's that long enough, you think?
It probably is, especially if you deworm them, then they should be pretty clean.
And so you're not bringing a lot of those resistant worms on your pasture. Because that's what that one lady did. She bought goats. She never had trouble when she bought some. And I'm like, you bought resistant worms. It was not a very happy camper. Nutrition will also help if you feed protein supplement. And they found about a pound, this Ohio one said about a pound of corn, soybean meal diet. I've got another one here from LSU that's a little higher in protein. But you can see the hematocrit, when you're supplementing, you can see how it improved. This is what worms do. They take the red blood cells so they can't get oxygen down to a really low level. This is the LSU's. They said 2.2 pounds of this this ration here, and you can see it's corn, soy hulls, wheat nibs, pretty high in protein, cottonseed hulls. We're not going to have these in this area, but you can replace them with soy hulls, or just put more soy hulls in them, or more wheat millings, or use soybean meal instead of some of these protein sources. Remember though, when you put a lot of corn in a ration, if you get too much in, you're going to affect your forage digestion. Some people just feed soybean meal and get by pretty well with just straight soybean meal, pounded it, just because of the protein. Protein really helps with that hematocrit. Copper oxide, use of oxidized copper wire. They put it in these capsules. They use this a lot in Australia. It seems to help. I don't know if it's not an only answer, but I do have a producer that uses it regularly here. It says it really helps with their worming issue. But you got to get them in and do all of them.
Yeah, we've been doing it for several years. You know, it doesn't eliminate the worm, but it stretches your worm. You know, and once you get the hang of it, we use a balling gun and those, you know, we just put them in as we go. I think it's
you get the wire out of Australia. Can you?
You can actually order from Valley Pet.
Okay.
It comes in, and it's already in the capsules and everything. At one size for kids and one size for adults. We've been using it, and it seems to, besides the worm bill, it just seems to kind of improve the overall health of the goats. The goats get slicker, and you know, of course, most of the minerals that we have don't have enough copper in it. So you know, that may be a problem. But you still, you know, you're doing that. You don't want to be injecting multivitamin or any other source of mineral because you can get copper toxicity.
Okay. Now, Heather at Wallace, I can't think of her name, we talked 2 years ago. I think it's Heather Strotter. she uses it. And then they used to do a grazing service, so they went around and grazed for people. And she says they routinely use this. This is just the effect of copper wire on fecal egg counts. You can see what it does when you put the copper in. It doesn't really kill the worms, but it affects their ability to reproduce, put eggs out. And, you know, they'll still put out some, but it just reduces it. And there's your packed cell volume. You can see that as you get those in there, that helps. The other ones to worry about, lungworm can be a problem sometimes. Coccidia, this is a coccidia livestock. Coccidia is an issue. So when people call me and tell me I have trouble with goats and they said they're kind of misty behind, I think of worms or I think of coccidia. And you know, you can check for coccidia in the manure too, or that can. But I like feeding a coccidia. Do you feed a coccidia stagnant mineral?
Yeah, I've been feeding Ruminants for over 20 years and I haven't had a case of coccidias yet. Back when I used some of the other coccidia stats, Decox, Dusek, they work pretty good. And then whenever you have a break in it, you have a bunch of sick animals. So Tony Ross told me that any feed I fed goats needs to have Ruminants in it. So that's what I've been doing, and I have not had any coccidia issues at all.
Good. That's what I recommend is in your mineral. It's just a good safeguard for you.
Well, and then you know, Ruminants or Monensin is a growth enhancer anyway. We did the study when we first started feeding it, and the goats that we fed Ruminants weaned at about 10% heavier than the ones without it. So it actually stimulates, makes bigger animals.
So you're benefiting twice.
Yeah, exactly.
Think about it. And then tapeworms. Tapeworms don't seem to be a real problem, but once in a while we'll see some.
And we only tried to worm once a year after feeding with a white trash. Usually Synanthic most of the time, but just with all of it. And you know, we've seen some tapes. You see it in the stool sometimes. So once a year usually seems to be enough.
Good. So this group here, I get a lot of information from them. The gal that trained me in Vermont was from Arkansas, and she's a part of this group here. She was at one of the Arkansas research stations. She came up and did a program. So I train people in Missouri. I still do in Nebraska here, and I've got a couple of vets trained in Nebraska now, so they're doing their own, which I'm excited about. That's just all the people there. You know, South Africa is also involved in this group. And then these are the people that gave me information. Helen Swartz is no longer in the small ruminant specialist. She's retired. They have a new gal there at Missouri. Okay, that's all I have. Please fill out your evaluations. Honestly, if you want me to keep my job, I need you to fill those out. Whether good or bad, I don't care, but just fill it out. I guarantee you they look at those. For those of you online, I will send you those. Nobody answered me if they could hear, so I guess they can. Otherwise, we have 3 on. So I knew I just had a few doing. Okay, I'm going to stop. Is there any other questions for anybody that's talked today? Anybody has? We definitely can